across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, a very good evening to you. It's Jonny Gould here. I'm in for Petri. You probably know that Petri was on at 4 o'clock this afternoon. It's been a day of musical chairs, and it's been a day of heightened emotion here at Talk, because it was the day that we laid James Whale to rest. And, you know, if there's someone who represents the spirit of what this TV and radio station is all about, it was the great James Whale. I paid tribute to him on the day that he passed away by saying that he, I think, in my opinion, and maybe I hope the industry's as well, I think he was the most significant character to ever emerge from independent radio in this country, because the way he used to handle live radio was something that they would have never done on the BBC. And James worked all the way through the decades right to the end. You'll know that independent radio, which started in the 70s, had its local radio characters. So Radio Airs was James Whale. He became so successful there, the Gospel of Whale expanded to Metro Radio. In Birmingham, we had Tony Butler and Les Ross. There was Billy Butler at Radio City in Liverpool, Steve Penk at Piccadilly in Manchester. These legendary names set the tone for the difference between what independent radio was and what the BBC was. Steve Wright, incidentally, came out of, I think, 210 Radio in Reading, but I put him down as a BBC character because he pretty much moved on to the BBC and became the superstar that he was through the BBC. But James stuck really through independent radio his whole career. I mean, I don't think really BBC could have housed him very much, do you? He did spend time, I think, at BBC Kent for a short while before returning here to Talk Radio in the 2016 period. And it was my considerable privilege to work with James from 1995 all the way through till now, when Talk Radio was in its first carnation. James joined the then Talk Radio after a few months after Caesar the Geezer. Why James wasn't a shoo-in from day one, I have no idea, but they made the right decision eventually, and here he was on Talk. And also I think he set the tone, I think, for what we've become as a convergent radio station, a TV station, because the embryonic Talk TV, as it was, started with his YouTube show, James Whale Breaks the News. And whenever Chuck, the producer, asked me to go on the show, I ran to be on James's show, because, first of all, it was good to be around him. And secondly, the way he conducted the live show was, well, I think he could have been a Speaker of the House of Commons. There was absolute pure public house democracy about it, utter free speech, in a way that free speech should be, completely inoffensive, completely to the point. There is no need to worry about offending someone else when it's done in that rumbustious way which James did. And he had a long tail. I don't know if you remember James Whale Breaks the News, but James was at the top standing up, and then there were four of us. And then usually the one he wanted to bully most was under his nose. I've quite enough from you. Mike Batt of the Wombles, for example. And I did the show with Andre Walker before he had a show here. There was Maya Tusi, Pat Christie's was here as well. There was always someone from the Green Party, which was always entertaining. And I made sure that I was at the front nearest the camera, because he'd eventually, no, let's have a word with Jonny, let's see what he thinks. And I got my 15 seconds in there pretty much along the way. Rest in peace, James. Thank you very much for being my friend, and so self-effacing. You know, he might not have thought he was a radio legend in the way that I thought he was a radio legend, but he was always keen to ask how I was, what I was up to, in a way that treated me like an equal, because he was that guy. He was a true Brit. You know, everything about him was English to the core. I mean that in the most decent sense of the word. So my condolences to Nadine and to his family, and to everyone who may not have met him but loved him, because of course he was on air for decades after decades after decades and worked continuously. Got Ash coming on the show. Ash was given the considerable honour of being one of the pallbearers today. And so we'll have Ash on the show as well to describe 30 years of friendship and perhaps how the funeral went today. It can't have been all tears, could it? It must have been a sense of community. James was brilliant at bringing people together, and bringing people together for years, you know? So you think of all the people that he was mates with for years, who stayed his mates from all walks of life, like, you know, Nigel Farage and Charlie Mullins. Mullins was always there, wasn't he? And just so many people, Ash as well. I just want to say one thing about the way he conducted his relationship with Ash, which was really beautiful. I mean, you think about, you know, him bullying Ash and, get out of my studio, and, oh, you're no good, and why do I work with you, and all this kind of stuff. But actually, if you look, when you see them on the TV, if Ash is going off on one, as Ash often did, you know, James would just gently tap his hand. There, it's okay, we'll move on. Because, you know, James was also a great broadcaster as well as a producer. All the great broadcasters produce themselves live on air. He would pat Ash's hand, because that was the real James. You know, it wasn't just the noise and the shouting, I'm getting out of here, you're no good, and I get out of my studio. That was just his act. He was a fair, decent man, and rest in peace, James. So Ash will come up on the show as well. Yesterday, throughout central London, starting in Marylebone and snaking past Broadcasting House, down Regent Street, through to Trafalgar Square, past the Cenotaph, was one of the most significant marches against the rise of anti-Semitism we have ever seen in this country. People were worried about the tube strike. Would people turn up? They did in spades. 70,000 people, it's estimated, snaked through London's West End yesterday, and it ended up with a stage where a variety of people made speeches. And if you think that those 70,000 people were Jewish, you'd be wrong. First of all, there aren't many Jews in this country to make up 70,000 people. There are something like 200,000, maybe 250,000 Jewish people in this country. So it would be quite a titanic effort if that many of the Jewish community turned up in one place. No, it was made up of what you might call the silent majority, who smell a danger, who don't like the experience that this minority is experiencing. So Richard Tice MP was there, the deputy leader of Reform. Michael Gove, the editor of The Spectator, former cabinet minister, was there. Lord Ian Austin was there, a crossbenching peer. He used to be obviously a member of the Labour Party. There was not, Chris Philp was there as well, the shadow Foreign Secretary, shadow Home Secretary. Anyway, Chris Philp was there, the Tories were represented. Who was there from the Labour Party? No one. They didn't send anyone. They didn't send anyone. So it was up to Jonny Reid, who has become a friend of mine over the last few months. Jonny Reid is a backbencher. The reason you haven't heard of her is because they don't put her up for interview, because she has, shall we say, opinions of the prevailing opinions. So Jonny was there because she believes in the good fight against anti-Semitism and in support of Israel. So she was representing the Labour Party, even perhaps in an unofficial capacity. So let's talk about that now with one of the speakers at the rally, columnist for The Telegraph, author of Israelophobia, the newest version of the oldest hatred and what to do about it. And good evening to Jake Wallis-Simons.
Hi, Johnny. Good evening.
Good evening, Jake. What was so heartening about yesterday was the amount of Union Jack flags among the banners and the Israeli flags. In fact, a raw anecdotal count was that the Union Jacks seemed to outnumber the Israeli flags, because the message of yesterday's rally was, it's up to you, Britain, stand by your beds before it's too late. We are here to help you defend British and Western values.
That's right, and I think it was correct that there were more Union flags than Israeli flags, because it wasn't really a pro-Israel rally, although most people there had pro-Israel feelings. It was a rally about Britain. It was a rally about our society here and what it says about our society and indeed the West when anti-Semitism runs rampant. You know, really, you mentioned my book Israelophobia, which came out, weirdly enough, on September the 7th, 2023, yes. Exactly a month before October the 7th. But my next book that's coming out this October is called Never Again, ? How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself. And I think there is a sense that the betrayal of the Jews is a betrayal of ourselves in Britain and around the West as well. That really, you know, as Prime Minister Netanyahu put it on a podcast just the other day, if you go to a pro-Palestinian march, particularly the ones like we saw on Saturday that are hugely violent and provocative and unpleasant, where there are almost 900 arrests, and you ask any of the protesters there, never mind Israel, what are your feelings about Britain? I don't think you'll get much positivity there. You certainly won't get them flying the Union flag and singing the national anthem, as we all did with great gusto yesterday. I think that really gets to the heart of it. It's not really about Israel. It's not really even about the Jews. It's about something that's much more fundamental to who we are as a country. So it's right that there were many, many Union flags there, and I was very proud to fly one of them.
Absolutely, because I think, like you, from the Anglo-Jewish community, we were brought up with the idea that when in Rome, do as the Romans do, respect the country of which we find ourselves in. And more than that, over the decades that we've been on Earth, we have embodied, I suppose, an Englishness, which over the last decade or so, I don't know about you, but I've felt a betrayal of by a huge amount of people.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my grandfather fought at D-Day, my Jewish grandfather, for the RAF. You know, I grew up going to synagogue, and on the wall of our synagogues was a prayer for the royal family that was recited every Saturday, every Shabbat, at a high point in the service. That's still done today. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, when I was, well, I wasn't the 70s, but, you know, when I was about to be born, people would sing the national anthem at the end of bar mitzvahs and at weddings.
Yeah.
You know, so British Jews have always been patriotic. Our attitude has always been that we are proudly British, fight for this country. Many have died for this country too, and just want our country to be proud of itself so that we feel secure within it. You know, I think that this sort of modern trend that's really post-Cold War elitist trend, which I call in my book centrist fundamentalism, which boils down to, as Roger Scruton put it, down with us. Everything's down with us. You know, down with our faith, national faith, down with Christianity, down with our borders, down with our history, down with our culture, and up with everybody else, up with Islam, up, you know, all that stuff. Makes minorities like Jews feel insecure, because we think, well, if you're not respecting your culture and the prevailing culture in Britain, how are we going to feel safe and protected in Britain? And so I think that the collapse of our national certainty has really affected Jews and our sense of being safe here. And that bringing us up to date now, post-October the 7th, it's really, you know, it really has become very, very apparent that those big forces that are trying to subvert our society from within, you know, whether it's the far left, the progressive radicals, or the Islamists, are coming for the Jews first, but their real animus is against all of us, against our way of life. And it's time to fight back, I think.
Yes, it is. And I was speaking to Gideon Falter, who is the chief exec of the campaign against anti-Semitism, who organised this remarkable show of strength. And he said that the purpose of the rally was this time to say, hey, the Jews will be fine, you know. The Jews are strong, the community is strong, we know who we are, but to the wider British community, stand by your beds. Join us in defending the best of our freedom and our values. We'll be okay, we're worried for you.
That's right. I mean, look, we're worried for ourselves as well.
Of course.
Let's not make any bones about that. But he's absolutely right, and it's a point that I made in my speech as well. That fairly nerve-wracking speech that I delivered to 70,000 faces, stretching
and
up.
well done, by the way. Well done. I mean, I would have looked at my mobile phone but you strolled around like you were, looking for the party leadership.
I made the decision to go noteless in the model of David Cameron circa 2010,
Yes.
whatever it was.
Well, it worked for him.
And I deeply regretted it in the hours beforehand, but by that point it was too late because I was carrying this banner along, and luckily it managed to work out without too many disasters. But look, yeah, I mean the point that one of the points I was making is that this is an anguished and dark time for Jews around the world, and in Britain, of course, and yet we know in our DNA we will survive because we have survived for thousands and thousands of years. As the late Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs put it in one of his books, Jews are always fighting a losing battle, but they're always surviving. Maybe never quite winning, but always surviving. And we know that that's us. We know who we are. As Zev Jabotinsky put it, we came before them and we will leave after them. No one's old enough to hold us to account or demand that we answer tests or questions. But the West is much more of a worry, because the West doesn't seem to know what it stands for anymore. You look at Israel, look at Jews, we know who we are, we know what we stand for, and certainly in Israel, we're willing to fight for it and defend it, and in so doing, defending the values for the West. But the West doesn't realise that it's the same values anymore. We've almost forgotten, been sort of forced to forget, or forced not to express an affinity for those values. So I think now that the tide is really turning on this centrist, fundamentalist repression of our national pride. We saw the revolution of the flag taking place recently, people putting flags up in the streets. We saw Reform producing a huge audience in Birmingham. And people have had enough with being told that we can't be proud to be British and that we've got to accept other people's prejudices and bigotries as if they're sacrosanct and undermine our own virtues and qualities as if they're bigotries. People have had enough of this topsy-turvy whirl of centrist fundamentalism. We just want to be ourselves again and to be proud of our country as every other country can be proud of itself. And I think the Jews are caught in the middle of this. And the sooner that Britain can find itself and realise that it's okay to be proud to be British again, the safer the Jews will be.
Can we talk about what the West End has become? Because it used to be the focal point of entertainment and dining and shopping and institutions, and now it's about rallies and a bit of fighting every week. Why doesn't the Prime Minister or someone near the top of power say, everyone calm down, we're all British, or at least whatever they decide we should be, and just calm down? All this internecine fighting is down to fear because the leadership we have is so confused.
That's right. I mean, I mentioned the flags being put up around Britain and so on, and that's, I think, a good and valuable reaction to being told that we can't fly our national flag for so many decades and we're fed up with it. But at the same time, there's a worrying note to it as well, because it's become almost a turf war between immigrant communities that don't have any allegiance to Britain and communities of Britons who do very much have an allegiance, even though it's been repressed. And that's not a welcome thing. That's not British. It's not British to have that sort of clannishness or that sectarianism. But that's unfortunately a consequence of the totally reckless and unmanageable level of immigration that we have had in this country ever since the Blair years, through the Tory period, to the present day. And that, it's a total mistake to suggest that Britons are not hospitable or are intolerant in any way or racist. We are not. We are an extremely tolerant country, as evidenced by the fact that you and I, Johnny, as British Jews, are so happy and have been so welcomed here for decades and decades, at least until quite recently.
I have this job. I'm very grateful for it. I've not been cancelled. Here I am. Here you are.
Exactly right. And and yet the experiment over decades with the elastic limits of our toleration in Britain, combined with this effort to tamp down our national pride, is beginning to crack now. And you are beginning to see community pitted against community, because people have had enough. And there's lots of immigrant communities who sadly have come over in too fast and in too large numbers too quickly to assimilate as they should be. And so you get this sort of balkanization of Britain, and how the Prime Minister can begin to control these festering divisions in society is difficult when he himself isn't able to say, we are British, we are proud, everyone's welcome, and to instill that national pride once again that we seem to have lost.
Yes, he appears to be the wrong man for that particular job. Jake, you're up to a lot at the moment. As you mentioned, you've got a book coming out as well, another one, Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself. You've got the Brink podcast coming up, which appears to be the antidote for Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart, alongside our mate Andrew Fox. Tell us a bit about what we could expect on that podcast coming up soon.
That's right. Well, Andrew Fox will be familiar to many viewers and listeners as the former parachute regiment officer and Sandhurst tutor, who has become a Middle East analyst and has spent a lot of time fighting the fight on behalf of Israel. He's not Jewish, of course, but he's very, very experienced and qualified as a soldier, having done many tours of Afghanistan and elsewhere, and is a very powerful voice on social media. And I was thinking, you know, Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell, the rest of his politics, turns my stomach, frankly. I think a lot of people get a bit queasy when they hear those dulcet tones. And then on the other end, you've got Piers Morgan as well, who seems to be, you know, laundering clicks via outrage. And so we thought it was just time to have a couple of blokes talking in a sane way, trying to find ways to pull the West back from the brink and restore our sense of pride, both in terms of Jewishness in Israel, but also in general. Just let's get ourselves back, let's get our country back, as it were. So we called it The Brink. We've got various interviews with leading figures, such as Douglas Murray, such as Sir Neil Ferguson, such as Barry Weiss, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, Tom Holland, the historian, not the Spider-Man, Bernard Henri Levy, and many, many others.
Neil Ferguson?
Sir Neil Ferguson, absolutely.
Yeah.
And many others. And these are the interviews are used in my book as well.
Yes.
So it's kind of a crossover. So if you read the book and you want to hear the interview in full, you can go to the podcast. And all of this is launching on September the 18th. And we're just hoping to inject a bit of sanity and common sense into the world of podcasting, which seems to be becoming more extreme and attention-seeking with every passing week.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for raising the bar at the beginning of our show. Jake Wallace-Simons, thank you very much indeed for joining us and opening the show here on Talk. Good evening. My name is Jonny Gould. We're going to open up the lines as well later with your memories of James. Heather Sewell has WhatsApped us and said, I miss James very much. I love talking to him and he's the most pleasant man ever. That's a nice thing to say about James. There's no asterisk in there either. Hi, Johnny, says Rachel. I'm not Jewish. I'm a devout Christian, she says, but I would have loved to have gone to the march yesterday to lift up and support all the Jews of the community here in this country and Israel, but I lifted Israel up in prayer at home. Rachel, thank you for that. Martin, amazing memorial to James, Johnny. There's definitely a hole in the hearts of everyone that will never be replaced. Something is different about Talk moving on today. We have someone who set the bar for us, who is now no longer with us, but I hope will inspire us to be the best broadcasters that we can be. Good evening, I'm Jonny Gould, this is Talk, and we'll have more after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And you can book your call now, 0344 499 1000, because after midnight we'll open the lines with your memories of James, anything perhaps you might have done with him on air, anything that springs to mind when you were listening or watching him with Ash over the many years as we laid James to rest today. If you've got any thoughts about James, loving thoughts. Ash is coming up on the show as well later. I think he's still in Kent. In the pub celebrating James's life. Let's see if we can get him out of the pub a little bit later on. We've got Stella Chantakidou coming up after 11 o'clock. She'll be reviewing the papers with me. Got lots of papers coming in. That's when they start printing them. And also, because of this rally that was held through central London yesterday, not much coverage on the media. That's why it's important for us to reflect it. 70,000 people turned up on the streets of London to say enough of the anti-Semitism, enough of the racism against a minority. It is very, very un-British, isn't it? It's not how we do things here. So your thoughts on that, as this Telegraph article today said that more than 1 in 5 Brits now hold or agree with anti-Semitic views, a study's found. 21% of the public affirmed 4 or more anti-Semitic statements, compared to 16% last year. 5 years ago, the figure was just 11%. Researchers said the findings showed that the number of people holding what would be considered entrenched anti-Jewish views has doubled in less than 5 years to more than a fifth of the population. The figures are the highest since similar surveys began a decade ago. And this comes after, obviously, October the 7th. When Hamas and Islamic Jihad bust through the borders and butchered, raped and burnt Israeli civilians in their homes, mutilated women, burnt children to death, shot the family dog, killed people with grenades. Really terrible things happened. 1,200 people were murdered that morning. It's the single highest death toll since the Holocaust. It has changed Israel's history, and of course it has changed their security arrangements as well. There can be no room for complacency in the Jewish state. So we'll talk about that after midday if you've got observations about anti-Semitism in the UK. And actually, if you hold anti-Semitic views and you're brave enough to talk to me about them, I'd take your call, 0344 499 1000. Our biggest competition to date here at Talk is now live, and we're giving you the chance to win a whopping £25,000 plus Oasis tickets. 2 lucky winners will win a pair of Oasis tickets when they return to Wembley on the 27th of September. That late in the summer, towards the autumn, will there be any sunshine that night? We'll find out. Plus, that's not all. Alongside the tickets, we're giving one listener the chance to win that huge 25 grand. For all the details and how to enter this amazing competition, listen up right now.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word cash to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission. Or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 3338. All entries must be received by the 19th of September at 9 a.m. This is a TalkSport limited promotion run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, a very good evening to you. My name is Jonny Gould. I'm in for Petri Hoskin tonight. Petri was doing the 4 o'clock show. And we had a few musical chairs today because we were accommodating the funeral of James Wells. So many of our presenters, producers and staff all went down to Kent to help lay James to rest. We'll have Ash on the show later. He was one of the pallbearers today for James as well. And we'll talk about the funeral, and we'll talk about your memories as well after midnight. If you want to book your call, you can do now, 0344 499 1000. And I think it's time to congratulate Scotland because they've won their first game of World Cup qualifying tonight against Belarus, away from home by 2-0. 4 points from their first 2 games, which is just as well because they've only got another 4 games to qualify. It is that tight for the Scots, as we say. Good evening to Alex 3 Lions Irons, TalkSport presenter and producer. Hello, Alex.
Good evening, Johnny. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, and well done to the Scots. I mean, this is probably the best Scottish side for about 30 years.
Yeah, they've got a lot of high-caliber players. They did pretty well against Belarus, who, to be honest, aren't predicted to do a lot in their World Cup qualification group, which also includes Greece and Denmark. Scotland currently sits second in their group. Denmark are top, only by a goal, because both Scotland and Denmark are on 4 points. Greece are on 3. Belarus still pointless at the bottom, and only a goal separates Denmark and Scotland. So we could, especially with the expansion of the World Cup this year, it's been expanded to 48 teams, and we've already seen quite a few nations that have never qualified before qualify for the World Cup in Canada, America, and Mexico next summer. The likes of Uzbekistan are going to be there, Jordan are going to be there, they've qualified.
Wow. And
we may see Scotland there with them if they qualify either automatically if they finish top of the group, or if they finish second, they then go into another round of playoffs, and they'll play another European side or another UEFA side in the playoffs for the World Cup, which will happen, I think, in about April or March.
Alex, there's a sense of relief it being in North America after the 2 controversies of the last World Cups. I mean, no one could imagine that it would be in Russia as it was 7 years ago. And then, of course, the horse trading of Qatar as well. And I said on Talk at the time, leading up to it on what was then the Sunday Night Club, that I would refuse to go to Qatar because of their human rights record in terms of the people who built the stadium and the fact that they hadn't signed the Abraham Accords alongside their Gulf Arab neighbours. Now we have a different situation where the World Cup will be hosted at a time where President Trump is it's got a very, very different feel. And as you mentioned, the teams that are taking part as well, Jordan and did you say Uzbekistan?
Uzbekistan have qualified for their first ever World Cup.
Right.
You've also got Iran, who have qualified from one of the Asia groups, and of course Iran.
They often do, don't they? Though
they often do. They're normally there, but
yeah,
because Trump has given Iran a travel ban, it would mean that no one from Iran would be able to go and support their nation at the World Cup with their playing teams or other nations in the US.
Right.
Of course, that changes if they're in Mexico and in Canada.
Sure.
And the same would go for Venezuela if they were to qualify. And Venezuela, I'm pretty sure, are the only South American nation from CONMEBOL to have never qualified for a World Cup.
That is absolutely right. Vino Tinto, as they are known, because of their red wine-coloured shirts, have never been to the World Cup. Just a word on Scotland before we go and talk about England playing tomorrow night in Serbia. And that is that Steve Clarke picked 5 players for his latest Scottish squad, which play in Italy, led by Billy Gilmour and Scott McTominay. This is an absolute clanger from Manchester United to have sold McTominay, who looked like the sort of Darren Fletcher of his generation at Manchester United. A good player, but has turned out to be a world-class player. They've won Lo Scudetto in Italy, and he was named as one of the Ballon d'Or shortlisted as well. What is it about Napoli that has created this busman's holiday for McTominay, which he couldn't do at United?
Good weather, good pizza.
Is that right?
And the football. Yes, me too.
Will I become a better presenter if I'm out there?
I mean, I would say the same thing, but I think I'll just get bigger on pizza. And I do that enough as it is already. Napoli are a institution of football, and the fact that Scott McTominay has gone over there has been, he's been world class. The fact that you said he's already been nominated for a Ballon d'Or after being there for a year and a half, I think at this point, he's more or less picked up cult status in Napoli. There are other, as you said, other players that have gone over who are Scottish to play in Italy, and I think there is a bit of a resurgence in English and British players going over and playing in Europe. Italy is one of the big ones. Scott McTominay, we saw Tammy Abraham, who's gone over there, the England striker who's playing for AC Milan. You've got there's another, is it Tamori, who's also playing for AC.
Loftus-Cheek's over there.
Loftus-Cheek's over there playing for AC. So we're seeing a resurgence of players that may have not necessarily been popular in the Premier League, and players that we may, as football fans, think they're not going to cut it, they're not good enough for the Premier League. They've been going to the Bundesliga in Germany. They've been going to, we saw Conor Gallagher go to La Liga, which of course is a world-class league in itself. Italy was the football prime back in the 80s and 90s, and it has dropped off a little bit, but you're seeing players have a new lease of life out there. And I think the fact that whenever English players would go abroad, there was always the English tax. You've got to play more to have an English player or a British player. I think that's gone. And we're seeing players reinvigorate themselves by having a new lease of life in Germany, in Italy, in Spain. And players have gone over to France to play in Ligue 1 as well. And we've had a couple of players who are English, who are championship players, lower league, Premier League players, go and have a good career out in Turkey. So we are seeing players who we may have not expected to, we may have expected them to have done well in the Premier League, hasn't quite worked out for them for whatever reason, then go and play in Europe and really tear it up and reinvigorate their careers. And I love the fact that a couple of years ago, you had McTominay and Fred playing in the middle of Manchester United. I think they were nicknamed McFred by Manchester United fans. Fred's gone out to Turkey and is doing pretty well for himself. And McTominay has essentially become a footballing icon in Napoli and in the rest of Europe because of his performances in Serie A. I think it's a lovely thing to see.
It's marvellous. And no wonder Brazil didn't win the World Cup 10 years ago, because their squad was full of players who were called Fred, Bernard and Jean, which sounds like sort of the back line for Coronation Street in the Rovers' return, doesn't it? But
well, I support a club. I'm a Fulham fan, and just before the transfer window slammed shut, Fulham signed a Brazilian winger called Kevin.
Nice.
So there we go. Those names haven't changed.
Kevinho.
Just not even Cavino, just Kevin.
That's nice.
Or Big Kev, I think, as we're going to call him.
Absolutely. One guy who can't light a match in Italy is Dele Alli of Como, who has left the club in recent days. Keenan Davis, former Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest players at Udinese.
Adam Lookman as well.
Lewis Ferguson at Udinese. It's all good stuff. Now, the England, right? Thomas Tuchel is getting pelters like all England managers get, but even so, 4 wins out of 4, and performances seem to be guiding him in a way perhaps that he may not have expected. So, for example, Elliot Anderson, he says, is in the mix after an excellent debut against Andorra. Serbia tomorrow night. I'd be surprised if Anderson wasn't on the team sheet. And there's another fella who's doing very, very well indeed, and you might even say he'd be one of the first names on the team sheet with 4 assists in his 8 internationals, and that is Noni Madueke.
Yes, bit of a surprise inclusion. I mean, he just signed for Arsenal. He's had a couple of pretty decent appearances for Arsenal, but to put him in the England team, he was in the England team over the summer, so maybe it's not that big of a surprise. But the fact he's there,
it's his impact, isn't it, Alex?
Yeah,
it's what he's doing.
Impact player. We've also seen, like you said, Elliot Anderson perform very well against Andorra on over the weekend. But England fans, I feel, I think England fans are expecting too much at this point.
Not again.
Yeah,
not again, Alex.
Who would have thought that a team that doesn't win anything, their fans are expecting too much of them? I've seen a couple of people that I know in my inner circle have gone, why don't we get Southgate back? This is rubbish. And I'm like, you're complaining about Southgate before. Why are you now complaining about Tuchel and wanting the old guy back? Like, it doesn't really... England fans, to me, don't really make a lot of sense. Like, the England are playing good football. It's possession football. it's okay. Some of the games that we've been playing in the World Cup qualifiers, they haven't been spectacular. To then, beat Andorra 2-0 on Saturday. Okay, it's not fantastic, but it's Andorra who have, over the past 10 games, they might have not won any games, but they've really kind of shut down teams that have been attacking against them and have not conceded more than 3 goals over the past 10 games. And for a team that are minnows in world football, to keep teams playing against them and keep them down to a 1-2-3-0 scoreline is a pretty big deal for Andorra. And we're seeing smaller nations really start to push against the ones that are higher up the FIFA and UEFA rankings. We're seeing the likes of teams that are in Gibraltar and Malta and San Marino, although at club level, now start to really push teams that are high, like in the Europa League and the Conference League. Those players are now getting that experience and they're taking it back to their national teams, and they're starting to really develop those smaller nations. People go there, coaches go there, and they want to really make an impact on those smaller nations who have never really done anything before.
Well, there's every chance now.
We saw San Marino get promoted from the Nations League, which, as a team that didn't win for 20 years up until last year, to then get promoted out of a 3-team division was unthinkable even for them. And the fact that they've done it is quite something. But I think England fans maybe need to rein themselves in a little bit. Okay, the performances have been boring to some extent, but when you're a team who are so possessively, like, they're built to just hold the ball and move it around and try and poke holes in defences, and that's what the type of the football that Tuchel wants to play.
Yeah,
that's the way. It's just
as long as we win, I don't really mind. I'll go out for a drink when we win the World Cup in America, or Mexico, or Canada. I don't mind.
Wherever it will be.
I don't mind if it's 1-0 like the Greeks did in 2004 in every single game. I really don't mind.
Yeah, and if they win it like that and they just shut everything down, at least we can say we've won another World Cup and won one in our lifetimes.
And there is why Alex Irons is the Three Lions, okay? Alex Three Lions Irons, thank you very much indeed, as always, for joining us here. What do you think about the England under Thomas Tuchel? A slightly different mentality from that of the Gareth Southgate era, but he has inherited a winning formula for sure. We have won our last 2 under-21 tournaments. He's bringing in a lot of the under-21 players, so we have this winning mentality. We've just got to get to that final and win it, having lost the last 2 European Championship finals. We're ever so close. We're ever so close. 03444991000. We'll talk about James Whale's funeral in just a moment with my brother, Ash. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
One of the things that I am most grateful for James Well's life is the way that he looked after my brother on air. And perhaps it might be said how Ash looked after Whale as well, for they were a formidable partnership, and Ash was given the considerable honour of being one of the pallbearers at James's funeral today. Ash joins us hotfoot live from there as he left the ceremony. Hello, Ash. All right, man. All right, Bubba. Are you on?
This is James's granddaughter, Ella, who's here.
Oh, nice. Hello, Ella.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can all hear you, Ash.
Hello.
Yes, thanks for straightening yourself out for this interview. Excellent. So look, just give us a kind of flavour of what it was like today. Did it reflect who James was in life? It wasn't such a solid. Of course, there would have been tears, but was there something else about today too? A sort of an affection, a love, and maybe a bit of laughter. I don't know.
Yes, there was. I mean, that's exactly a good description. There was a lot of tears. I mean, Ella had the speech and she held it together till the end, and there was a lot of happiness as well. You know what I mean? There was a lot of funny stuff because Lee John started singing "Amazing Grace."
Oh right,
but
beautiful.
Yeah, it was, but he printed off his own words and they didn't reflect what was on the running sheet. So James's brother, who was officiating, because he's virtually a vicar, his son is a vicar. Yes. And he officiated Keith Wow beautifully. And he stopped Lee John and he went, Lee John, he goes, that's not what we've got. And it was all funny and, you know, James would have loved
Maybe
that.
the King John Bible version of Amazing Grace is different from other Christian denominations, perhaps.
The imagination version of
it's just an illusion. Ooh, ooh, ah, ah, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So apparently, Kevin O'Sullivan was saying that there was archery at the graveside. What was that?
Yeah, that was beautiful, actually, because...
Was it?
Well, James was the under-16 champion of toxicology.
Really?
It's a proper name for archery.
Say that word again, Ash.
He used to go out in the woods in his long leather boots and his toxicology. It's also a board game. But he used to go out in the woods with his mate. Theo Profitas did it a few times. Chris, James Cosmo, the actor. You know, they'd all go out, and especially Gary and Hillary, who looked after him beautifully. Yeah. At the end, his friends. And Gary came and shot these whistling arrows. They're special arrows that whistle. 3 of them over a grave, and there was a bloke watching because it was going over a road. And one of them, it didn't nearly hit, but it looked like it was about to hit the van, but they were going over. And it was a very good archery, archmanship, because he was firing between tree branches. It was really well done. Right. And he looks just like Rick Wakeman.
Say that again, because we just lost you for a second. He looked like who?
Oh, well, he looks like Rick Wakeman. But, I mean, there was loads of celebrities there. Yeah. There was Theo Profitas, Eamon Holmes, Nigel Farage, Bobby Dabra, Biggins. I mean, they were all, it was such an eclectic. There was a couple of lords, you know.
That's Henry, the thing about James. I was saying just before you came on that James had this tremendous power to create community around himself, and that he was very loyal to people, that his friends weren't just fair weather. These were friends for decades, and that's no wonder that they were an eclectic group from showbiz and politics and plumbing, indeed. I think Charlie Mullins was one of his mates too.
Yeah. Charlie Mullins was here, and Peter Strapier, Shirley Lewis, who was George Michael's main backing singer. Yeah. It was beautiful. People were singing and performing, and it was really lovely, and it was very beautiful weather. They weren't sure about that, and amazing church. And it was mainly happy, but there were sad bits.
Of course.
But it was mainly happy. And now, we're at the Hoodia, which is a sort of, this is where we're still having a few drinks and that. So here's my gin and tonic. And this is all for James, laid on by his mate Joe, who carried the coffin with me and his sons and his grandson and his driver, Andy.
How are you going to get home?
It was, of course,
tonight,
at the
Ash?
front right of the coffin.
Yeah. How are you going to get home tonight?
I'm staying here tonight.
Are you? Okay. Have you told Mum?
That's why I'm having a drink, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't told Mum. Will you tell her from me?
I'll tell her that you're staying over. Now, I said before that there isn't a more significant personality to have emerged from independent radio than James Whale. Of course, Steve Wright came from 210, and there was Steve Penk from Piccadilly, there was Tony Butler from our own BRMB with Les Ross, etc. But James worked through the decades until, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. And apart from a year or so at BBC Kent, stayed in independent radio because that's where he belonged. He was an independent radio animal. He was the most significant independent radio personality. Where do you put him in the pantheon of broadcasters, Ash?
Well, he was unique, wasn't he? There's no one really like him. And he was also, he was like a lecturer, a university professor of radio, the way he would talk about it. It was all come naturally. Oh, this is what they should be doing, and that's what, and this is what, he had so many years, decades of experience. And it was all natural. But like I say, all those people are unique in their own right, like Steve Wright, Terry Wogan, James Whale, all the great
because you can
people.
mention
Sort of
James in those
style.
in that company. That's the thing. You can mention him with Wogan and Steve Wright and Kenny Everett, etc. Can't you? Chris Tarrant.
Yeah, because of his genre, he was probably the top guy, wasn't he, in that field?
100%.
As Kenny Everett was in his, and Steve Wright was in his.
Yeah.
Chris Evans in his one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he taught my friend Sam at school. Yeah. Remember?
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm getting all sorts of comments. So, was it? I spoke to Jason Cundy before of TalkSport. He said possibly 300 or more people were there. Is that the right number? Do you think?
Yeah, people. And they had it televised outside here and at the church. It was too big for the church. Too many people. It was a beautiful 13th century church.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful. It's like the Garden of England, and this is a particularly more gardeny bit of England.
And he was actually buried in the churchyard, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was probably buried in the churchyard. And it was a really tasteful coffin. It was the most tasteful thing I've seen him in. It was a beautiful grey lamb's wool thing. For James Whale, it should have
Yorkshire wool.
It was Yorkshire wool, sorry.
Right.
It would have been to James, he'd have had cockatoos and paisley and, tassels coming off it. And, a big wooden heel at the bottom.
Oh. Absolutely. And just a word about Lady W. Nadine today.
Yeah, she was brilliant. She did a great speech.
Yeah.
And it was very heartfelt. And, they had the last 5 years were fantastic. James had the best time, and she said she had the best time ever. And, it's so sad that it happened like that. But, it was great that they met each other. And
they met each other late in life. But that's at least his last years, personally at home were happy ones, which I'm sure everyone in his family would have appreciated as well. Ash, obviously you'll miss him professionally, but there's a personal element to this too, because apart from the hours you spent on air with him, you spent probably more time with him off air too. You'll miss the man.
Yeah, well, probably not. I probably spent more time on air, but we did see each other out. But we were on air sometimes 5 nights a week, weren't we?
Yeah,
we were on 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
For many years, so I spent most of my time on there. But we always used to go out before the show, especially
of course,
when we were in Soho.
And we did spend a lot of time with him out and about.
Yeah,
you did.
And we played chicken with who could get in later to the show, like 2 minutes before the show. But
I think you'd always win that one, Ash. I don't think there's any problem there.
No, I had to go in first because I had to do the faders before he would have to go in. So he always had me on that when I used to do that. Yeah, in Oxford Street.
Absolutely. But life for you continues, and you're on with Andre Walker now, and also you're working with Kev as well. But it gives you an extra dimension that you are like an elder statesman who worked with this great broadcaster. If you don't mind me saying so, Ash, you deserve that.
No. Well, it definitely. I mean, I was talking to his granddaughter, Ella. She was saying, "Oh, you're just like him," and I was saying, "Well, that must be because I've worked with him." So when I've done the show on my own, I'm just cutting callers off, and people look a bit shocked. But that's just because I've worked with him over half my life, haven't I?
Of course. Well, you're even more polite than him, which is a very high bar, indeed. Ash, thanks very much for coming on the show. All right, Bubba, I'll tell Mum what you're up to, and we'll see you at some point in the future. That is Ash, all right, Bubba, Gould, James Wales' erstwhile co-presenter. I'm Johnny. I'll see you after the news at 11.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jonny Gould here, and welcome along. And in this hour here on Talk, we go through the newspapers, and everyone has to have a presenter's friend, and my presenter's friend tonight is someone I personally asked for, even if I've never met her. So I'm taking quite a chance here, but I don't think so. It's a calculated risk as I say hello to Stella Chantekidou.
What an honour. Thank you for having me.
It's nice to have the Greekest accent in Westminster.
Indeed.
Tell me, because you're a real Anglophile, that's why you're here. Why England? Why Britain?
I'm a Lord Byron in reverse. I'm a Lady Byron. Like Lord Byron came to Greece to save the Greeks because he loved them so much. I feel like I've been attracted to this country since I was very young. It's the literature. Your literature is your best propaganda. Yes. You get into our brains when we're very young and defenseless, and then we're just loyal to your country forever. We just can't help ourselves.
We do have a soft power that is incredible around the world, and as Jake said in the first hour, Jake Wallis-Simons, we're all a bit down about being British, and that is a sort of British disease. In English, everything's rubbish here, it's really bad, it's raining all the time, oh, I'm going on holiday to Spain, I'm not doing anything, it's rubbish. But actually, snap out of it. You know, we've got a great country here. We've got the Magna Carta. We've got Churchill, we've got Byron, Shakespeare, we've got Black Sabbath. We've got the Villa, we've got all sorts of things down here. But in all seriousness, it carries on to this day, Stella, because I don't know about you, but I think Hollywood is absolutely awful. And I thought it for a very long time, and you only have to see the Oscars, and it's like irrelevant. It's like no one watches it. And since Chris Rock punched him, or the other way around, Will Smith, it's like, it's just it's an S show, isn't it? And what has overtaken Hollywood, which was, I think, good up to about the year 2000, is the biggest soft power in the world is the Premier League, our English football. It is the richest league in the world. We invented the game, and we have maximised and monetised it to the point that the last transfer window, by the way, which is the amount of money that's spent in a sort of condensed amount of time, was something like £2.9 billion, which is more than the Spanish, Italian, French and German leagues put together. £3.19 million. That's including the deadline day, which is much more than they have in all those other famous leagues.
You go Britain, yes.
It's right, isn't it?
It's a different kind of entertainment, I guess, to Hollywood. But there is, for me, there is something very endearing about the way British people are very self-deprecating, and
yes,
and you know, they can't, even when they are Olympic athletes at something, they can never bring themselves to say it out loud. Somebody else always has to say, and they have to be super humble about it. So I'm sure. You know, Premier League, I'll take that. I'm sure there is a lot more. I'm sure there's more.
Oh, yes. I'm just saying that the idea that England has had it is, you know, reports of its demise are very overstated. The Premier League only came about in 1992, which came from the Football League, which, of course, was the original league in this country and has been monetised to a Hollywood level. And, I mean, the amount of people that wear, I don't know, the Arsenal shirt or the Chelsea shirt in Namibia and New Zealand and, you know, and in Greece, Panathinaikos aside, you know, is remarkable. It's remarkable. So, newspaper time. You've been looking through the papers, and what has captured your attention first up?
Well, there is a lot of worry about what Donald Trump is doing over the pond. I don't know how much of a fan you are of our giant orange president.
You're not, are you?
No, I'm not.
He's getting a lot of things right.
What do you think he's getting right?
Well, I like his baseball hat, which said, you know, it used to be very modestly, "Make America Great Again," but now it's, "Trump was right about everything." Have you seen that one? The Gulf of America, that's gone as well. Trump was right about everything in the White House.
He's very good with PR, I'll give him that. He's very good with making a lot of big statements, but he's also making a lot of people very, very nervous because of the way that he's seizing power over Congress, because of the way that he seems to be just rehauling everything, because of the ICE raids. People really don't like the way that he's just going into neighborhoods and just picking up waitresses and gardeners and fruit pickers, and it may sound good in theory, but in action, it is actually very, very destructive for a lot of local economies, and even Republicans are complaining.
Gardeners that are here illegally, the law-abiding strawberry pickers, can't they be naturalised?
Well, that's the problem. In the US, they have a lot of illegal workers.
Mexicans.
And even Republicans, even Donald Trump Republicans need a lot of these illegal workers to work on their all sorts of businesses. And you will even have illegal immigrants who have been there for a very long time, and they have set up businesses. And the businesses will be legal by now. But these immigrants, they will have never gotten American citizenship, so technically they are still illegal. So you have people who haven't been back to Mexico for a decade, and now they're being sent back home.
Yes, this is a problem. And he did something really very shocking. Narco-terrorism, as it's called, rather glibly, although it is a serious problem for America's youth. There was a boat with a bunch of Venezuelans on it, so he thought, I'll pop a drone on top of it, and he destroyed them. Well, that is a way to deter future drug journeys, isn't it? But is it the right thing to do?
It is one way. It is one way to do it, but I think that people are going to start freaking out, especially in the US. People are going to start freaking out, especially if they see people, perishing in rather brutal ways. And I don't know whether you've heard, but people are really worried that he's going to want to run for a third term. And
that can't happen, can it? In a war situation, it can.
He keeps on mentioning. He keeps on mentioning to people, and his advisors keep on trying to, pass a subliminal message that, oh no, don't do this, don't run. If you imagine how much the history is going to love you, how famous you're going to be across the world if you just finish on a second term, you finish on a high, your memory will always remain great, and because nobody wants to challenge him outright and say, can you please not destroy our democracy? People are going to go wild, especially Americans. Americans love protesting, they love rioting, they're going to go wild.
Yeah, because everyone's armed. And the whole point of being armed was that you could hold the government to account. That was the idea. It was to maintain your freedom. Unfortunately, it's ended up in school shootings, which are awful and happen all the time. But we won't see guns banned. But we will continue, God forbid, to see assassination attempts, which is part of the American cycle.
Yes, it is, and I feel like there is something else about American culture that makes that kind of violence more. There is also a lot of mental health problems in the US. There is a lot of mental illness, and people are seeing all of these videos of random violence going on. I don't know if you saw that video of a guy who murdered a Ukrainian refugee literally in cold blood. They were riding on the same train, and he was sitting at the back, and the guy was African American, so obviously that was prime material for former Twitter. And I think that's just another example of you have the opioid crisis, opioids crisis, obviously, and you just have a lot of people who are really, really mentally ill, and they simply are not being kept away from the public.
Yeah, these ICE raids, which are definitely threatening societies, individual communities where areas are emptied of their people who've lived illegally in the country but have got on with their lives because a succession of Democratic and Republican presidents before Trump didn't really care very much whether they were there illegally or not, whether they crossed the border or not. Trump is the first president to really care about it, but it is a blueprint for perhaps how reform would run this country as well, isn't it? Farage said so in a series of interviews. It is a dress rehearsal for the potential of what might happen here after 27 or 29.
They certainly want people to feel like this is something that they could be doing, and they have certainly ramped up their rhetoric over the last year. This year for us is saying things that last election you would have never expect him to say. Now they are freely talking about mass deportations. The number that's flying around is 600,000 people to be deported, and all of this is based on the fact that people are saying, oh, we don't really know how many people are here, blah blah blah, all of these things. But we have to remember that it's actually very difficult to do this kind of raids, and the UK is not the US. The UK doesn't have the same kind of confrontational culture between the police and normal citizens, and also they're going to find out that a lot of people are actually here legally. So what are you going to do? Are you going to deport legal citizens?
No, you would never do that, would you? So that is your New York Times. Let's go local now and look at the Sun newspaper, and this story about Maddie will never go away. I'm the cop who set Maddie's suspect free. The agent felt sorry for the alleged rapist. And Bruckner, this German criminal, is out this week. The cop who secured the release of Madeleine McCann's prime suspect, Christian Bruckner, as early as this week, is an ex-German FBI agent who felt sorry for him. Her name is Rebecca Coop. She's 39. She's paid a £1,300 court fine, wrecking hopes at charging the rapist over the 2007 disappearance of Madeleine, who was then 3 years old, in Praia da Luz in Portugal. This is yet another sorry tale in this tragedy.
It's such a weird story, you know, because obviously I wasn't super aware of the whole story with Maddie growing up in Greece, but her face was always familiar to me.
Yes.
Even for me, I would have seen her face. And I've just been seeing, it is really strange seeing the same young face of this little girl who's, obviously this is a very, very old photo, right?
Yeah.
This little girl no longer exists.
Yeah.
And it's just, I wonder what it is about this story that has also captured the public's imagination so much, and why is it that specifically, because there are so many tragedies, why is it specifically that Maddie is a story that has captured us so much?
Well, I think it's because the parents went out into the press and attempted to try and find her using themselves as the front people, and then they hired a professional, Clarence Mitchell, to handle it for them. And they have spent the last few years kind of moving away, but of course it's now got its own media momentum as the story thickens. You know, suddenly these blonde girls aged 23 are saying, I'm Madeleine McCann, I'm Spartacus, you know, I'm this person, and all these terrible stories, and this child and the parents will never be able to be at peace. I think it's probably that. I mean, there are, as you say, other cases, but I think it's probably that the genesis of this came out because the parents, initially the McCanns, used themselves to try and get the child back in the early days, and of course then they were suspects themselves. So it kind of didn't work out as they thought. They let the media lion out of the cage, and it hasn't been put back in, I would say. That's probably the reason.
And now you have, of course, all of these interest groups popping up everywhere, obsessed with this case and trying to decode what happened.
Yeah. So let's go and look at the Times now. Macron loses another prime minister days before protests and strikes. They always have strikes in France, and they always have protests. So he was after protests and before protests there. His prime minister was François Bayrou, 74. A good career, sir. Well done for being Prime Minister eventually. He was evicted after just 9 months in office when he lost a confidence vote over his austerity budget in Parliament. He shouldn't have gone out there, should he? Shouldn't have gone. Michel Barnier, his predecessor, the former EU Brexit negotiator, had lasted just 3 months. Gosh, it's amazing, isn't it? Because despite all of this, Macron is still the president. He's no good, is he? He's scrap metal, isn't he?
You know, French
Stella.
politics. We can't compare the politics of other countries with the politics. The French are messy people. They're used to that stuff.
Yes.
They love protesting. They love complaining. They love, you know, having this love-hate relationship with their politicians. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you see, he's the head of state, Macron. Now, our head of state is King Charles, and before that, God rest her soul, it was the Queen who died on this day 3 years ago. And the thing about our monarchy, Stella, is that we can project upon our monarch the very best of our British values, whereas someone like Macron or Trump, who is also a legislator, could mess up the country's consensus moving forward. So that is my one worry about Trump. He will change the country in perpetuity after he has gone. And Macron, you know, with their kind of constant revolutionary flavour, the fact that he's stuck to power, the fact that it is so insecure in France, is creating the potential for another republic to be created. It's a constant revolution in France.
You know,
what do you think?
I think you may have just made me into a monarchist.
Yeah,
I
am a monarchist.
I was never massively
I'm
obsessed with, you know, the royal family and being against it or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of lefty anyway.
Well, what a relief.
Yes, but the more you say that, the more it sounds like it makes sense to me. It's actually, it is quite nice. You have this
can't
symbol.
believe I've talked you into being a monarchist. It's true.
Yeah, you have this nice symbol. Everybody just, it's a very innocuous symbol because they no longer do anything bad, the royal family. They no longer, you know, nobody dies because anyway, we're gonna have people emailing in. Somebody did die actually.
Yes.
But let's not get into that.
No.
It makes sense. You have to, they're stable. They're there no matter the politics. You suspect that they have political opinions on their own,
Yes.
but you try to project your own political opinions
Yes.
onto them most of the time. Whereas with Macron, he damages the whole reputation. He makes everybody gets angry. So
Yes.
they are more disunited as a result. And they're more and more. And I think the problem with France, right, is this, they just had it so good for such a long time.
Yes.
French people, they have these amazing pensions. They have all these amazing perks. They have time off,
Yeah.
amazing holidays. They go for
Incredible.
2-hour lunch
Yeah.
breaks.
They get paid for a year when they lose their job.
So, every time
No wonder
now...
they're skint.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
big country, though, with a lot of agriculture. I learnt this because, when you take a train from King's Cross to Leeds, there's a town every 8 miles because we're quite small. There's Peterborough, there's Newark, there's Wakefield, Westgate, and various other interesting towns up and down. Whereas if you go from Lille to Strasbourg, there's absolutely nothing except Russian fears that they might get invaded by France because it's all flat. And France is just so much bigger. France is such a mystery to me, being British. I have no idea how it works. I've been to France many times. Okay, my missus is French. Right, I can't understand it.
How they eat all of this fat and yet they are so skinny,
Yeah,
right?
it's a French paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. No, I don't understand their politics. I don't understand their revolution. I don't understand how they've succeeded. I can only assume because they're 4 or 5 times bigger than us, they've got enough, wheat and tomatoes and the south with all its Mediterranean business and its Germanic stuff in the north to sort of manage itself in a way that we can't. And that, I don't know how...
They kept the nuclear energy, that's why. They bought
really?
our energy.
They're
they
good
bought
at trains as well, because they're obsessed with nationalism as well, aren't they? Nationalisation. They kept... You see, right, Paris, right, it's a bit overrated, isn't it? It's a bit overrated. Old buildings, Fawley Downy. Basically, France, you see, I don't understand it. Perhaps you can explain it as a Greek person on the other side of France. Can you explain their republican ideas, that how it works, how they've managed to maintain a consensus, even though the revolution has kind of constantly eaten them up the whole time? What republic are we on now? The 5th?
I mean, I'm not a Francophile, I'm an Anglophile.
Yeah, no, but I don't see. It's Fawley Downy, Paris, because they never had Thatcherism to shake them up.
But a lot of Europeans say the same about the UK. They say, these people, they've never had a revolution, so they're always on the verge of a revolution. And when they do finally get it, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be worse than all of us, guys.
Right.
It's like, how...
We did have a revolution, didn't we? Cromwell, the Lord Protector, was in for a
People
while.
keep on saying that it wasn't a proper one.
Well, it was a bit. It was,
How when you're a child, you have to go through chicken pox? Because if you go through chicken pox when you are a little baby,
right,
you go through it lightly. Whereas if you don't, and you don't get immune to it, and then if you suddenly get it as an adult, it really gets you down badly. That could be the UK.
Ah, okay. So tell me, because it's one of the most continuous cultures in the world, Greece. Where's your king?
I think we deported him. He's in exile. Now he's back. I'm not sure where he is.
He can live in, because the King of France lives in France. They've fixed it all, haven't they? The royal family lives in Paris without the fear of a guillotine. So where's your king? And what's his name? Is it Constantine?
Yeah, Konstantinos. See, we don't care about them very much.
No.
We never really saw him as our own. My grandfather, who was a Greek Orthodox priest, he was pro-king. He was very pro. We should just have a king and we should have a monarch,
yes,
and that's great. And you know what? The older I grow, the more I see the point, yeah.
I've sold you a monarchy.
Refreshing. Yeah, sounds refreshing. I would just sit back as a political commentator. I would be like, really sorry, guys. The king said we are doing this, so what does it matter what I think?
It's right, because we project the best ideas of our national identity upon the king, who never declares what he thinks, asterisk. Sometimes he goes on about architecture and things that, like the environment, we kind of think we know what he thinks, in a way that the Queen we never did, because the Queen was all about duty. Duty she was. Stella Chantequido is my guest in the studio. Will you stay tuned to talk? I bet you will.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We continue to look through the front pages with Stella here on Talk, and the Times continues. Visa threat to states not taking back migrants. The new Home Secretary Mahmood will risk spats for more deportations. Indians, Pakistanis and Nigerians will face visa restrictions if their countries refuse or delay efforts to take back illegal migrants from the UK. Shabana Mahmood, she's the new Home Secretary. She signalled her willingness to risk diplomatic spats with big nations, announcing plans to suspend visas for countries that did not play ball with her efforts to implement a surge on migrant deportations. Mahmood, who was hosting Kristi Noem, President Trump's head of Homeland Security and oversight of his mass deportations policy, vowed to press ahead with visa sanctions. And these moves reflect a shift towards a more transactional approach of using the visa system to increase deportations, a government source said. And so Labour are now starting to parrot, to imitate the policies of Reform. But there's a difference, isn't there, between Labour and Reform, which is Reform mean it. I don't think Labour mean this at all.
No, because Labour is in government, whereas Reform can just say whatever they want and nobody needs to see
But
the
do you not
evidence.
think Reform would be that person when they came into power? Or would they be completely compromised?
If they do, which is a big if they do win the next elections, maybe they will. But this is a very sensible thing, which I, as a lefty, have been saying for a very long time. And frankly, I think it is because I am an Anglophile and I really like and respect the UK and I want them to do well. I've always thought, wait a minute, why are these countries not cooperating? What is the purpose? For example, you know, when you have like countries like Iran taking our journalists or whoever off the streets and throwing them in prison, why don't we do any sanctions to them? The countries should feel like they will have to pay if they are not cooperating with the UK. If they want if their citizens want to be able to come to the UK, then their governments need to treat us with respect. And if they don't do that, then they should have citizens who are angry at them.
Yes. This idea that transactional approach to our foreign dealings is something revolutionary or new is ridiculous. It should be accountable. You know, President Trump talks about his transactional ideas as opposed to just giving aid for no reason. That's how the world works. It is business. We need to be transactional in our relations. Otherwise, we get taken out. Things fall over. We don't protect our citizens. When they talk about this government's first objective is to protect the welfare of its citizens, that's a new one on me because I've never felt it in my adult life, honestly.
Your government has most definitely been taking care of your welfare. That
Have
is
they?
100%.
Have they? They didn't book me for tonight's job.
What did you want?
No, I got a call from someone else. Hello, this is Starmer. Are you available for tonight's 10 o'clock? Oh, I am, Sakir. Thanks very much. Or someone in his office. No, I mean, I just want to pay less tax.
I get it.
I want them, I want the councils to be less hostile to its people.
I have a solution.
Come on.
I know how you will pay less tax.
Yes.
So if I was God for a day,
Just
not
write
just
this
Prime
down.
Minister.
You just need to write this
I
down.
can repeat it many times.
Right.
Not just Prime Minister, but God. I would force everyone in the world, the whole planet, to pay the same amount of tax, basically. Which would mean
Right.
all the people on normal incomes, I'm not just talking about poor people who obviously if you're on a very low income, you shouldn't pay any tax at all. People on normal incomes, everyone will be getting a tax cut because all of the super wealthy who get to funnel all of their wealth into offshore trusts
Yes.
and offshore companies and they get to register in Dubai or wherever else,
Yeah.
they would have to pay the same amount of tax as, a person who is on a 40k salary
Right.
in London or whatever.
Right.
So,
But we need a progressive tax system. Even I believe that.
but you can't
the
force
rich
them.
need to be paying.
You
a
can't
little bit more.
force them because
No.
they just take their money and
Right.
they put them in offshore accounts. So rather than my foreign policy would be, listen, we can't have other countries being tax havens. No more tax havens, guys. Sorry,
Okay.
this is
Yeah,
a
but how do we
terrorist
implement
endeavor.
that? How do we implement that?
Well,
International law is
that's why
is
I
a
said
sham.
God and non-prime minister. But otherwise, I would say, please never intervene in another country unless it's a tax haven. Then military, go in there, send the British Navy.
Stella, the self-appointed Greek goddess, right here on Talk. Shall we move on to the Mirror now? Oh, blimey. So the Mirror is more of your left-wing taste here. Mm-hmm. So they've gone exclusive. Circus is in town. Don't be fooled by Farage's clown act. The Chancellor lifts lid on Reform's fantasy economic plan, and it's not funny. It says here, Rachel Reeves will today brand Reform UK a clown show who should not be trusted with public money. That's rich. Taking aim at leader Nigel Farage, the Chancellor will warn voters Reform would lose control of spending. And therein lies, I think, the self-admitted weakness of the Reform Party when he was on with Laura Kuenssberg on the telly, and he's sitting there with his Union Jack socks, being Nigel Farage, I'm Nigel Farage, being very, very confident with his hands, and he said, look, I know, we've never done this before. It's my big weakness. We haven't a clue. We have a Scooby-Dooby-Doo. We don't know. We've never been in government. And, of course, that's absolutely right. That is the only advantage, it appears, that Kemi Badenoch and her gang of Tories have. That they have had quite some time in government and understand the machinations of it. There would be some real cock-ups on the first 2 or 3 months of the Reform government, wouldn't there?
I don't know if it would be just the first 2 or 3 months. I
Yes.
think it would be absolutely
Yes.
chaotic and catastrophic, and I wouldn't want
do
to
you?
be number 10.
Shall I tell you what I worry about? Because, the Reform's sort of one of their main objective is to crush the Tories. They were just our government for almost the last 200 years, minus, maybe a few decades of Labour and maybe the Lib Dems and the Whigs before them. But they will stand in every one of the 650 constituencies around Great Britain to try and beat off the Conservatives. There won't be a confidence and supply agreement where the Tories are going to win. They'll take them on. Now, the Reform are growing fast, and among their free speech orientated people, there will be a few wingnuts who will make headlines among the 650. There won't be the sort of sensible people at the top of the business like Richard Tice and Zia Yusuf and David Bull and various others. There will be people among them who say, oh, I'd cut their head off and throw it in the pool and various other crazy stuff. And I used to be a councillor here and that's what I would do. And there'll be nuts all over there, and they will make headlines, and Farage will have to do a lot of firefighting. This is an issue for a start-up party, isn't it?
My main worry, for one, I think that he's going to take the Donald Trump playbook, which I honestly think which more politicians would do, which is ignore some of the media, like don't constantly respond to what the media is saying. But my main worry is that I completely agree with this headline and with what Rachel Reeves is saying. He's promising some insane amounts of tax cuts, insane amounts of money, which if you're not going to borrow more, your plans about the kind of stuff that you're going to be cutting are not going to be making up for the amount of tax that you want to cut. How are you going to do that without sending the pound into a free
Right,
fall?
but we do need an audit. Our public sector is too big. Our tax demands are too high.
And who do you trust to do that more?
Well,
who do you think is gonna
Labour
do this?
always bankrupt us. The Tories always manage things better. It looks like the Tories are dust for now, but it was always the Tories that came in and stewarded the disasters of we've got no money left. That's what they said after Gordon Brown. You know, Tony Blair did that, and actually, you know, for all the kind of criticism of the last Tory government, the last crew, Sunak and Hunt, did tidy things up at the top. For a while.
Labour closed down the biggest quango in the world.
Which was?
NHS England.
Right.
So I have a lot of hope.
That's good.
Because I think that generally what happens with policy is if you want to pass a policy that's difficult,
yes,
that's right-coded, you need to do that during a left-wing government. If you want to pass a policy that's difficult, that's left-wing coded, you do that during a right-wing government.
Right.
So this is why I think that who do I trust to cut the public sector to make it more efficient? Because you have to remember, we keep on saying, oh, the public sector is not efficient, and like it's more and more money are being thrown into the public sector. Well, yeah, but the country is growing. We are becoming older. We have more old people. So, of course, we need more money to take care of them. But if I do trust a party to do that, then that is obviously the Labour Party, because it has the sort of people who have the most experience from the public sector as well.
Yes, they do have, because they support the public sector more than any other party. That is true.
And they're the ones who would be able to make amends with the public sector workers and with the unions and make sure that these changes go through.
Yeah, well, someone like me wishes that the public sector was a bit smaller, but that's me, crazy old me. Right, it's the front pages with Stella, and we'll be on with another nugget from The Guardian, so stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to Talk, and my guest today is Stella Tsantakidou. Welcome to the show. I was given two pronunciation guides on your name. I was told that if I wanted to do it Greek style, it'd be Tsantakidou. But if I was to do it in an assimilated English fashion, as perhaps you also might appreciate being an Anglophile, it'd be Tsa. You're happy with both?
The first one was honestly incredibly
amazing.
impressive.
I love it. But I've just been to Rhodos for my holiday, for Rhodes, and it's obviously the most easterly point of Europe, because just over yonder is Turkey, but not your European Turkey, your Asian Turkey. You know, blimey. And it's not far, is it?
No.
Not
and
far at all.
It's very warm, well into September and October, November.
I was
even.
very, very impressed with Rhodes. Very, very impressed with it. I really enjoyed my time there. there was a lot of Greekness about the people and less Europeanness about them. There are more Greek flags than European flags there.
Oh, but I went to the island of Simi, which is just an hour off the coast of Rhodes, and they had a massive European flag in the middle of it. So it was during the, raise the colours, flags everywhere. So I took a photo of it and I...
Okay. That's all very exciting.
As a joke. Yeah.
Crazy. I was there at Euro 2004 when Greece won. That amazing...
Best year of my life. We won the Euro. Next year we won the Eurovision.
That's right.
Financial crisis hadn't happened yet. These were the days.
It was amazing, that Greek winning of the tournament. It was absolutely amazing. Right, The Guardian now. And, God, they don't like Boris Johnson, do they? You wouldn't let it lay, would you? You wouldn't let it lay. Revealed, Johnson traded PM contacts for business deals. A trove of leaked data from Boris Johnson's private office reveals how the former Prime Minister has been profiting from contacts and influence he gained in office in a possible breach of ethics and lobbying rules. The Boris files contain emails, letters, invoices, speeches and business contacts. They shine a spotlight on the inner workings of a publicly subsidised company Johnson established after leaving Downing Street in September 2022. The trove reveals how Johnson has used the company to manage an array of highly paid jobs and business ventures. They raise questions for the former Tory leader about whether he has breached revolving door rules governing post-ministerial careers. And I think this has to be one of the biggest non-stories I've ever seen. What a waste of time. And I'll tell you why. Because that's what ex-Prime... He's not in office, right? He knew a few people. I knew a few people. And, I've got a living to make. But I'm going to phone them up. I'm going to do my things.
Oh, 20 kids.
That's what I did. That's what I'm going to do. There's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of the way of the world, isn't it?
Yeah,
all prime ministers make £5 million after they leave office, or more.
He has 28 mouths to feed.
Yeah, he does. But seriously, that's a non-story. They just don't like him. They just don't like Boris, do they?
I mean, it is. I do find it fun to know how, all of the stuff he's doing and how desperately he's trying to make.
But
millions.
He's a bit, from what I understand, he's quite laissez-faire about money. He's, that lack of focus which he had as Prime Minister is actually sort of part of his DNA. He's a bit of a schlemiel when it comes to these things. He needs a bit of management. He needs people around him.
Yeah, he needs someone to focus him.
Yeah.
You know what I find very interesting? How he made £5.1 million just from speaking.
He's a star.
I know, but can you imagine 5.1 million pounds?
Yeah.
Just to go.
And of course, he doesn't prepare.
No.
He turns up on the bicycle at 5 minutes to, ruffles the hair a bit, says whatever he thinks. I said to President Macron, I said to Ferdinand, or whatever his name is. I can't remember what his name is. But that's right, isn't it? It's. But look, that's a non-story. David Cameron went off and got a teaching job in the UAE. Or something, didn't he? He was a lecturer for a while, wasn't he? And then came back, and then he was foreign. Oh, I'm Foreign Secretary. Hello. He came back as Foreign Secretary for about the last 3 months.
You are right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay,
He came back. Right. So the Daily Mail is the subject of our next story. Harry visits Windsor, yet no meeting with William. And so here is the front page of the Daily Mail. Don't be confused about the picture of Prince William on the left. That's not Jake Wallis-Simons, who was our guest in the first. Didn't have to look like him, doesn't he? Jake Wallis-Simons looking like a member of the royal family. He'd love that. So just 7 miles apart, but there's still a chasm between the warring princes. They both grieve for a beloved grandmother and indeed mummy as well, Princess Diana. And she would be so incredibly heartbroken at how they've grown apart in this way. Princess Diana, her beloved children who she wasn't able to steward into adult life beyond 1997. However, Princes William and Harry, they couldn't have been further apart yesterday on the 3rd anniversary of our Queen's death, despite at times being just 7 miles apart, less than 15 minutes drive away from each other on UK soil at last. The estranged brothers did not meet. Indeed, they almost simultaneously met at similar times. How are they going to bury the hatchet?
Do you think that the king should meet with Prince Harry?
Yeah.
Prince Harry has said that he really wants to.
He's his son, man. He's his blood.
Yeah, I find it so sad. There are so many people who are saying, "Oh no, he shouldn't. They should shun him. They can't trust him. They can't trust Prince Harry. They are harming the image of the royal family." Who cares? Who cares about PR? You are family. What is more important than family?
I know. And there's this thing in the royal family where, you know, the offices of the king don't get on with the offices of the prince. There's like the human being who wears the trousers and the vest, and then there's the extension of him, the king part of him, and they have to deal with both. They're sort of a dimensional character in a way that me and Ash, my brother, are not. I can just pick up the phone. I don't have to talk to Ash's office, not yet anyway, and go, "All right, Bubba, are you going to Mum's tonight?" "Yeah, I'm going to Mum's tonight." And then that's it. And then that conversation is done for the night. But then there's this sorrow, and you know, he will be king soon, William, and it would be nice, wouldn't it, if he ascended the throne with Harry at the coronation, you know, being his brother. And because if he's not, and that is a possibility, that is an Achilles heel. There's Achilles, he was Greek, wasn't he? An Achilles heel for his tenure as the king.
And he will be a king for quite some time.
Yes.
Hopefully,
and maybe
anyway.
soon. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't wish to tempt fate, but Charles has arrived on the throne late in life, and you know, William's coming into his mature years.
I hope that they can reconcile one way or another.
So.
I understand all of the sensitivity about, you know, how this is being used by Meghan Markle is using this. He's milking the royal family, blah blah. I don't care.
Yeah, marriages, you've got to get them right. You know, he married Meghan. She didn't really understand the royal family. She's pulled him away. He wanted to get away. He's used her to do that. She was not a royal in the sense, she just wanted the title. She doesn't understand the kind of way that Catherine, for example, really understands and has bought into being a member of the royal family. I'd be a fantastic royal.
Oh, you would, I know.
I really would be. I would love it. All that curled butter in silver salvers with fresh bread. I mean, that's all that in my palace.
I think there is something more to it, but sure.
There's that. And then I'd say, "Oh, you know, can you dress me, Philip? Oh, I've got the day off. I've got the day off, sorry, the day off. And what are we going to do? Should we go shooting? No, let's play football.
Let's
be
walk
a
the
modern
corgis.
prince.
The corgis.
Yeah, I'd be a modern prince like Will's. I would be a modern prince, modern king. I would be. I'd go on tours around the world, spreading the tabernacle of peace all over our lands. The Daily Express, and there it is, top left-hand corner. It's lovely to see James Whale making front page news as he does. A final goodbye for the man who stirred emotions. He certainly did. Very, very proud we are at Talk to have been his home for about on and off the last decade or so, and even longer, perhaps to the 90s as well. James Whale, rest in peace. He was laid to rest today at a church near Maidstone in Kent, and they were all there, 300 people and more, including my brother Ash, who came on the show earlier, Eamon Holmes, Nigel Farage, Charlie Mullins, Lizzie Cundy. Who else? Lots of people were there.
That's nice. I mean, very sad, but
yeah,
that's
very
nice.
sad. Great man. Rest in peace, James. And the other headline on the front of the Express: MPs warn the yearly HMRC staff absences cost millions, are unfair on taxpayers. No kidding. Shocking toll of 500,000 sick days off at the tax office. Civil servants in tax offices took 500,000 sick days off in the last 3 years, new figures show. The Tories blasted a sickness culture in the public sector as the unfair absences cost taxpayers millions of pounds when the UK can least afford it. And Shadow Cabinet Minister Helen Whately said these statistics are absolutely shocking. Far too many sickies. What do you think about working from home, Stella?
I think that I definitely don't think that it is the same as working from the office, and I think that for most jobs it is very important to have face-to-face interactions. I do think you do a lot more work when you're in the office. I think things are more...
Do you?
I think it is just easier if you're right there. If I have just one question, I don't have to set up a Zoom meeting.
Does it depend on the kind of job? Sometimes, like, computer programmers are so on their little computer, you know, that they don't need to consult with people. They just use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
You know, some jobs are concentrating jobs, like being an author, for example.
You could still be asking a question, even if you are, you know, even if you are just writing stuff all day. You still... My brother does that. My brother is a code monkey.
Is
like,
he?
You know, yeah.
Does he wear slippers?
No, he lives
Shoes?
in...
Socks?
like ugly trainers, yeah. He needs to be... It is just so much easier because you will have, like, just one question, just something to say to your colleagues. I understand, however, I do believe that it is good for people who want to have families and who want to spend more time with their family, if that makes it easier, and especially when you're talking about London. I mean, my ideal situation is that we make London more dense, we build more, so people can live near...
More skyscrapers?
Yeah, we need more dense housing. We need people to be able to live closer to where they work.
Yeah.
But until that happens, it is just simply very, very expensive.
We need skyscrapers. We need a revolution in planning. We need to be able to build more stories on existing homes.
I'm afraid so, yes.
That's kind of... Look at Acton, which is in West London, if you know it. It's just full of skyscrapers now. It's just unbelievable. And that's not even near London. It's like Zone 3 on the Tube, which is like 5-6 miles out of the West End. But there's these massive skyscrapers. You look at them and think, I don't think they're occupied just yet. They're probably £500,000 each or more. Or more. And that's what's going on in London. Should go on in more brownfield sites in London where there used to be, you know, dairies and various other car parks and things. It must be, we must actually, even in dense places, like, for example, Islington or, I don't know, Tooting, where there's old Victorian houses, you know, stick an extra, you know, story on top of them. Might look a bit ugly, but it would solve a housing problem in some of the big metropolitan areas of the country. We'll have a look at more of the front pages with Sele Chantaquido after this short break. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. Jonny Gould in the chair, standing in for Petrie here on Talk. And some lovely tributes have come in on WhatsApp for James. From Ali, first of all, I've listened and watched James for nearly 40 years while in the army and also as a truck driver. The airwaves are different since he's gone. I miss you. Rest in peace, James, the king of radio. Amen to that. Heather Sewell. Hello, Heather. Johnny, you should do a show with your brother Ash, and you should call the show Goulds Go Large. All right, Bubba, what about that, Ash? Yeah, man, I think that's a good idea, man. Yeah, let's do that, man. So that's fixed. And not that I'm always speaking for him, but, you know, sometimes you have to, you know, with Ash, you have to... Chris Holland, great programme so far. Johnny, first guest excellent, referring to Jake Wallis-Simons in the first hour. But right now, it's Chantiquito here. The Daily Star. Bling Oval Office fake. I mean, it's becoming a comic, the Daily Star. Fool's Gold. Orange man baby Donald Trump's boast of decorating the Oval Office with real gold has been exposed as fake. Fake news. The mouldings are from a DIY chain and painted gold. Was it a bling and lie sale?
Oh my God, what a loser!
Oh, you're such a loser. Such a loser. I don't believe that either. Make America great again. Bling, bling, bling. What a load of rubbish that is. Right, the iPaper. Labour. Now, you see, I like the iPaper because it has good asterisk headlines, which are all talking points, which is very important for the methods of radio and television, isn't it? Labour left plots. Oh, Labour left plots revenge on Starmer. Need a few commas there, but we got it in the end. 48 hours for party's left-wingers to find a deputy leader candidate who can challenge the Prime Minister, because that's what they did. You know, John Prescott was in with Tony Blair, you know, John is John. And then, you know, we had Angela Rayner, who was, you know, so far from, you know, Keir Starmer. It was ridiculous. So they need a lefty in there to sort of, I don't know, quell, calm or argue with Starmer in its way. Downing Street accused of trying to stitch it all up. The race for prospective candidates has to secure their nominations from 80 MPs by 5 p.m. on Thursday. Sacked Cabinet Minister Lucy Powell and former Shadow Attorney General Lady Nugent, Emily Thornberry, emerge as early frontrunners to replace Angela Rayner as Deputy Leader. New Housing Minister Alison McGovern is believed to be Number 10's preferred candidate. Louise Hay, she's got the funny hair, hasn't she? And am I allowed to say that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Whatever.
Yeah,
and Rosina Alyn Khan, she's the doc, isn't she? Considered options, but Jess Phillips has ruled herself out. I've ruled myself out. I'm not doing it. And business hopes to kill off Rayner's day one protections against workers are being dismissed. One thing's for sure, Stella, that Angela Rayner's sort of left-wing motivations either will be carried on with a different emphasis, even if there is another left-wing person in. She was very specifically about employment and her attempts at housing, whereas a new left-wing voice, which probably will be, because that's the sort of Labour won't, will do different things.
People were saying left. I'm not sure what they mean. I think they mean soft left. So yes, Angela Rayner is for from the soft left.
I think she's a bit hard left, isn't she?
No, not at all. No.
Really?
No, soft left.
Really?
Yeah. The only person from the people who have said that they may run is Richard Bergon, who is left. He's the only one who's like
he's
from the
Corbyn.
actual left.
He's a
He was from the Socialist Campaign group of the Labour Party. Everybody else is
he's not
pretty
going to
much.
get it, is he? He's not going to get it.
No, absolutely not. He's not even going to get the nominations. Most of them are from the soft left. Alison McGovern is a Blairite kind of MP. Louise Hay is also from the soft left. Lucy Powell is more of a mixed bag. Rosina Alyn Khan, again, mixed bag, but more towards the soft left, and obviously Jess Phillips has ruled herself out.
And Shabana Mahmood said, I've got quite enough on my home
and she does.
office plate.
And she's done.
She's done that as well.
Yeah.
Because that is the tension, isn't it? That's what you need to sort of unite the factions of the Labour Party, which seem to me to be wider than they used to be. You have to have a sort of lefty in there. And it worked with Blair and Prescott. it seems to work, because Prescott, even though he was much more left than Blair, was very tribal about Labour. If you're Labour, you're who I am. I don't mind what you say as long as you're Labour. Whereas Angela Rayner was very different to Starmer.
Yes, and I think you do
in
really
class
need that.
as well.
And that's why I'm a big fan of Emily Thornberry. I used to work for Emily Thornberry, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah, yes, she was a great boss.
Why doesn't she call herself Lady Nugent?
She doesn't call herself that.
That's what she is, isn't she?
Yeah, but why would she do that? She doesn't do that because...
It's like a rapper's name, isn't it?
It's like, it's her husband is a very successful judge. Okay, what is supposed to do? Like, it's just weird for her. Why would she call herself by her husband's title? It makes no sense. But I think she's great.
I don't think she likes it.
I mean, she finds it awkward because she doesn't feel like she has earned it. She hasn't done anything for it. It's not like she helped her husband in his career, so it doesn't really make sense for her.
She might get it because she's a cabinet minister of old, isn't she?
She used to be in the Salvador cabinet. She was a frontbencher for a very long time. She's had a very long parliamentary career, 20 years, and she has amazing name recognition from all the Labour MPs who could be standing.
And photos
for this.
of white vans with the Union Jack.
I mean, I think that is such an overdrawn story. I'm just so bored of it. But
no.
I think that they need. I think that Labour needs a personality hire. Labour needs some charisma. Labour needs a good communicator. How are you ever going to know if Keir Starmer has any good ideas if he won't let any people around him who are actually able to articulate a narrative?
Indeed, and they might take a leaf out of the Independent's headline as we look to that for the last of our headlines. Union chiefs tell the PM, don't axe Rayner's workers' rights charter. This is what I mean, how a new left-leaning Labour deputy leader might have a different emphasis, because Starmer warned he faces a massive backlash if the former deputy's employment bill is watered down. As one senior figure says, measures are a red line, and calls the reshuffle a right-wing coup. Very, very interesting. If you want to comment on that, you can, as always. 0344 499 1000. As I say to Stella Chantequido, thank you very much. Kalinichta to you, and thank you very much indeed for joining us here on the show.
A pleasure.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, well, it's not Petri Hoskin exactly. Petri is back again at the normal time of 10 o'clock right here on Talk. I am Jonny Gould, and I'm standing in for Petrie, and perhaps as much as that, it is a really considerable honour to be hosting the 10 till 1 slot here on Talk today, because it is the slot that is synonymous with nighttime radio, and there really is the king of nighttime radio, only one person to think of in that sphere, and that is James Whale, who was laid to rest today in a churchyard in Maidstone in Kent. And we've heard from Ash earlier on in the show, who was still there in the garden celebrating James's life, commemorating. He's going to stay over in Kent tonight with a number of other people very close to him. He was given the honour of being one of James's pallbearers today. If you've got memories and thoughts about James, of course, call us now, 0344 499 1000. And we've got some other stories as well. This is a very sobering story from the Daily Telegraph, and that is that more than 1 in 5 Britons now hold or agree with anti-Semitic views, a study has been found. This is very un-British. Hating a minority is not what we are about. It's just not a British thing to be or to do. We fought the Second World War against such tyrannies. So to see this leaking into our society, pervading it, is something that should deeply concern us, because anti-Semitism doesn't just affect Jewish people, it affects the society in which it manifests itself. This study found that 21% of the public affirmed 4 or more anti-Semitic statements compared to 16% last year. That's a big increase. In 2021, the figure was just 11%. Researchers said the findings showed that the number of people holding what would be considered entrenched anti-Jewish views has doubled in less than 5 years to more than a fifth of the population. They're the highest ever since this kind of data was collected. It comes after October the 7th, where in southern Israel, Hamas went over the border and killed more than 1,200 Jews, the single highest death toll since the Holocaust. They mention southern Israel because that's where it started, but make no mistake, if it hadn't been stemmed in southern Israel, it would have gone all the way through to the north. It would have gone through towards Tel Aviv, and you can imagine the tens of thousands of people that would have been murdered. It's just that it was curtailed. Late though it was, it still was dealt with. The YouGov survey commissioned by the campaign of against anti-Semitism found that 45% of the British public, almost half the population, believes that Israel treats the Palestinians like the Nazis treated the Jews. And that is, I have to say, the fault of the media, apart from this place and maybe one or two others that you will know and maybe listen and watch as well. But leading the chase, you might say, are BBC and Sky News with anti-Israel views. The campaign group said it both trivialises the Holocaust, in which 6 million Jews were industrially slaughtered, and insultingly accuses victims of the crime committed against them perpetrated. So I just want to know if you've got a view on anti-Semitism, if you have lost friendships with people who you used to feel a kinship with, but suddenly you felt that they've got a racist overtone that you thought, well, I can't talk to you anymore. 0344 499 1000. And slightly more cheerfully and more enjoyably, let's reflect on the life of James Whale this hour. If you've got a memory of him, 0344 499 1000. Let's talk about James as a mentor for free speech. Not just now, but for decades as well. Carol in Manchester. Hello, Carol.
Oh, hi there.
Hi.
Yeah, James. Well,
yes. Rest in peace.
Mentor, definitely when I was younger anyway, over decades, years. He is a mentor for free speech anyway.
Yes.
As we all know in that, and love him, dislike him, like him, love him. He was a character that was, over the decades, right, that would literally inspire you. And you would listen to him, even if you didn't like even if you didn't like what he had to say, you had to hear him. And the thing is, with him, I think, especially today, he was a mentor for free speech, because his ways over the decades was, why can't I say that? And he had a way with him where it was right. It was just purely right. He weren't. Some people would say that it could be maybe a touch like, maybe, I wouldn't say rude, but because we're not used to it. You know, we're not used to it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm talking about decades ago now. We're not used to it. But it was like, well, he wasn't swearing, he wasn't that or anything. He didn't push that boundary. He had that professional way of behaving that you did listen to him. And especially, I have spoken to him on talk, and there's been one or two times, right, where I've never had the bell where he's put me down and thought, well, I've had enough of you. But he was just that kind of person where
he detoxified the idea of free speech, because when he came out with his comments, or when he encouraged people to come up with the most extreme ideas, it was just like you were allowed to push back on them because of the way that he managed the conversation. He engendered and encouraged and detoxified free speech. That's what I remember and love about him most, James.
Exactly. And it was something that we needed. We needed to break out, you know, like within those decades, we needed to break out with it, that we could push that area, you know, like to have our own opinion. Because even God bless him, I mean, God bless him as well today, because I have thought about him.
Yes.
And God bless him is like that thought of being able to challenge, you know, to have that challenge without feeling embarrassed.
Yes.
And
that's right.
He didn't care anyway for decades.
No.
But he should have. He probably did in the beginning. It just gave us that way that we could do that. We could challenge, you know, like that kind of behaviour. And I think now is, and especially now more than anything today, is that we need to remember that kind of way of, because he'll always remember me. I always remember him as a person, as free speech, and I will always hold on to it. And I think lots of people who as respected him, is thought, now we need to be like that. We need to be able
100%.
to sort of say.
Yes. As I say, he did free speech a great service, and if we can continue broadcasting in that way, inspired by the way that James didn't care about whether there was pushback or not.
Yes.
The fact that actually the only way that we can progress as a society is by talking to each other about the most divisive things, which he did.
And having that great debate, because if we can't debate, we can't learn.
No, that's right. Carol, thank you very much for really hitting the nail on the head. Carol in Manchester, paying tribute to James's great skills in encouraging free speech and open debate. Should we enjoy some of the very best moments of James's career? Here's some classic James in conversation with Ava Santini and Jeremy Kyle.
Have we all suddenly become mentally ill? Seems to be a new fad, or do we just understand it?
Oh,
Well,
I think that's a really quite disrespectful thing to say, isn't it? Because, I mean,
don't
why
care,
is
really.
the conversation not...
I really
should we
don't
not,
care.
but
I
it's-
really don't care.
Well, then
because
what are you
I was
doing
asked
here,
the
then?
question, not you. You can have your say in a moment. What I find really annoying about this is a lot of people who seem to have stress don't even know what the meaning of the word is. And, OK, if these civil servants have been so stressed, they're in the wrong job. Get another one. But we've managed to run the country with having them all that time off. So can we just make a load of them irrelevant and sack them.
Well, they didn't.
Snowflakes.
But they didn't have any time off. Do you not think it's more? It would be better if
Didn't have any time off. They've been working from home all the
instead
time.
of just slamming down and going like, for goodness sake, get another job. Why doesn't someone go in there and assess what's going on inside the civil service? So, the PCS union has represented those civil servants, and they've been going on strike the past few weeks, and that's because there are not enough strikes. Not enough staff,
right,
and there have been too many cuts to the civil service, which means people are doing the job of 2-3 people.
Listen, the people in the civil service get great pensions. They get paid when they're ill. They get paid when they're on holiday. They get paid. They're very unlikely to be made redundant. It's a job for life.
Made a good point. And of course, that story is on one of the front pages of the papers today. The idea of all these sickies that were that the public sector have taken, the civil service have done. Here it is, as James Whale is talking from the grave. Shocking toll of 500,000 sick days at tax offices. Civil servants in tax offices took more than 500,000 sick days in each of the last 3 years. That's 1.5 million over the last 3 years. The Tories blasted a sickness culture in the public sector as the unfair absences cost taxpayers millions of pounds when the UK can least afford it. That is classic James. You can argue with him, but he was so fervent in the way that he put it. He talked in such a straight bat way. That was classic James. And you know, if there was a course to learn how to broadcast on TV in this kind of role, that would be a very good way of introducing that example. James Weller, your memories of James, 0344 499 1000. Let's go to London and talk to Tarquin. Hello.
Johnny, how delightful to hear your beautiful tones this evening. Of course, you know, it's very difficult to replace the great man himself, but you are about as good as it gets, Johnny. So
mate, I'm just here tonight, Tarquin. It's an honour to be in the... I know I'm in for Petrie, of course, but it is the 10 till 1 slot, which was really James's, wasn't it?
Great to hear you back, mate.
Well, thank you, Tarquin. Thank you.
Tell me what you think about this. When you say something that you said slightly earlier, Johnny, with James Whale, with his exquisite irreverence that he had for 40 years, and I can remember, I'm sure you come back to the 80s when he was doing the Night Network and all that. It was marvellous. It was so irreverent. He actually made the young ones look tame, didn't it?
Yeah, but he really did. The guests that he had on, it started on Central TV in Birmingham and then moved on, as you say, to LWT and a national syndication.
Right.
Yes,
he was.
Yes.
Good memory. Well, I just thought, if a young James Whale were to come through now, I would suspect, sadly, that he'd probably get a knock on the door at 4 a.m, be arrested for some non-crime, he didn't comment.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't be able to allow him such irreverence now, do you know, John? I just think that the left and the Stasi has got so pathetic that our Britishness, whatever that is, you know, our quintessential English sense of humour, was just going to be shut down. So a young James Whale is knackered now, and that's a technical term.
That's a very good point, because actually where James came from in broadcasting doesn't exist anymore.
No,
not just in the way that you're saying, but in the other way. There is no independent local radio anymore. There is no room for a guy in Leeds or Birmingham or Liverpool to say, will you shut your mouth? You're talking low. And I'm not talking loads of nonsense. You're always wrong, you are. And all this kind of thing that you'd never get on the BBC. And that's where he came from. He is, for my money, the most significant independent radio personality of all time.
And of course, we'll never see the like of him again, you know, with due respect to yourself, mate. But I mean,
you're right, because we live in a different era now.
We do, and I just think, don't you think, though, that the snowflakes of today would find offence with something that a young James Whale would find now, and he would be off the air, he'd be called in over Ofcom, and we'd have been denied a real James Whale because of the lefty bloody snowflakes we now have.
Yes,
you know,
although I hope that actually in the skills that we have of our daytime presenters here, we are living that age again in the modern era, like Mike and Julia and Kev and Ian.
Brilliant.
You know, we are doing that. It's not the same flavour as James and Kevin, of course. And Alex, yes, and Peter, and I can mention everyone now. But it's got a different flavour today. It's slightly more formal.
Yes.
It's slightly better argued in terms of fact as opposed to the rumbustuousness of the way that James discussed it. It's a debate for a different time, although free speech is still central to it.
Yeah, that's right. But don't you I just loved his sort of his grumpy headmaster way that he was. No, we can't. Where's that? We're going to really miss him.
We need that. We need that. Yeah. Well, you see, the thing was, it was of course an act, and yes, he was. Yeah. You know, he could have his grumpy moments, but I always remember with Ash, my brother, you know, his erstwhile colleague, sitting to his left at all times. The best thing you could see when you're watching on television, he would say, I'll sack you in a moment, I'll kick you out in a moment, all this kind of stuff. But actually, what he really was doing was, if Ash went off on one for 20 or more seconds, he would just gently pat his arm.
He would, wouldn't he?
Right, and that was the real James. He would sort of say, look, you know, I'm just as your proxy dad or your proxy older brother. It's all right, Ash, it's fine. My turn to speak now. And
he was.
But that's who he was. It was a kindness. You know, there was a kindness amongst all the noise. There was.
There was, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And I think that's what his appeal was, that we knew he actually was a very kind man underneath his rambunctious headmaster. You're quite right. Yeah. And your brother was, I didn't know that till you just said, how wonderful. You must have heard some wonderful anecdotes, which please regale us one day, Johnny.
Please, well, you know, absolutely. I mean, it would be very nice to... he's got so much...
Do you have a podcast, Johnny? Could you put one in a podcast?
I could put one with Ash together. We could do.
I think you'd be very popular.
On conversation. Did you? Everyone's seen, I think, by now, the last interview that Ash did with James.
Yes.
In the garden, the day that Farage did his. Ash opens it with. He says, "How's it going, man? How you doing?"
Yes.
And I mean, I could cry as well as laugh at that at the same time. And Jim says, you know, I'm ill. I really hate the way people ask that question. I mean, that was actually that was the relationship in a nub at that moment. It was. And
Johnny, well, keep up the great work, mate.
Well, Tarquin, thank you, mate. It's a pleasure to share memories of the great man tonight, because this is the night of nights, and there's that tradition that if a man of righteousness ascends to heaven, he ascends to heaven in a matter of days, and his soul will be above the graveside and gently and quickly, perhaps in James's style, be reaching heaven in quick time. I certainly hope so, and I pray for that as well. And maybe he didn't believe in it, but he might believe in it now. 0344 499 1000. Shall we have some more James in just a moment? Yes, we will. In just a moment. We'll take a short break. Stay tuned to Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to the final hour of 10 till 1 here on Talk. My name is Jonny Gould. I'm in for Petrie tonight. Petrie's back on your show tomorrow. We'll have a word with Georgina in London in just a moment, but to tee Georgina's kind comments about James and Ash up, let's just watch again James in action. He often clashed with his guests, quite a lot. Here he was debating, in inverted commas, with political commentator Charles Amos.
All they would have to do to make up the reduction in the winter fuel allowance, or its elimination rather, is to cut their leisure expenditure by 10%. And I've said that about 4 times on this show.
You know, you'll get thrown out by your ear in a moment because I'm getting really bloody cross. Look, I'm 75 nearly. I'm old. I've worked most of my life. In fact, I've worked it all. Some of the time I've had to put up with him. And I don't need prats like you coming in here at the age you are and saying, oh, well, you know, because when you get to the end of your life, you would like to enjoy it. You don't want to be sitting there worrying where the next...
Yeah, people on 11 grand, they don't get it. I mean, he might be all right, but there's some pensioners on 11 grand who've been told they can't have it.
41 seconds, which says it all about James and Ash there. Absolutely great. Georgina in London, hello.
Good morning to you, Jonny. Lovely to talk to you.
It's lovely to talk to you.
I've got a lovely memory of James Whale, and he was with your brother Ash. I called in and we were talking about Broken Britain, as I recall, and I'd written some poetry regarding Broken Britain, and Ash has got a very short span of attention
span, yes.
Yeah, and he, every time I call, because I am older and I do tend to go on a wee bit.
Yes.
On any subject I call in about, and this poem I had more verses than the Ancient Mariner, and you could see he was getting bored sort of after the first 1.5 verses, and he put on the music from the old Hoovis advert, which I thought was really quite funny, but James was not impressed at all. I started getting quite... Well, he was looking over at Ash as if to say, you know, pack it in, and I was carrying on trying to say my poem, and then Ash was pretending he was going to sleep, and James was getting more irate. And obviously I couldn't see that as it was actually happening, because it's the time lapse on the television when you're filming, and then you see it later. And it was only when I watched back later I saw what he was actually doing. And at the end, when I'd finished my rather long poem, James said, well, I think that you'd better apologise to Georgina for your rudeness. So he was, you know, I mean, it was lovely, because it was almost fatherly towards.
That's right.
It was really, really lovely, and I loved the way also that James, I mean, a bit like myself, you know, he never suffered fools.
No, that's true.
And I loved that about him. The fact, whether you were, you know, a man who brushed the street, or whether you were titled, you were treated with the same respect regardless.
That's right.
And that in itself is a gift, because not many people are like that. It's lovely to talk to somebody. I mean, I never had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman. I would have loved to have done so. But
well, I can tell you that he was exactly as you've described him. He was always interested. You know, when I saw him and I hadn't seen him for a few months, he'd say, "Oh, how are you, Jonny? What are you up to? What's going on?" And he then wanted to ask a pointed question that he thought I would be able to answer. He was always interested in people's positions, who they might be, who they are, and it was a gift, yes, like you say.
Well, I think the nice thing about him, he could empathise with people, and whatever he said from the heart. He was very sincere, and I think sincerity is something down the line that people have lost. There's no sincerity. And if you do find someone who has that gift, honesty, transparency and sincerity, then you have found something that's very rare.
Yes.
I think. You know, he did have a lot of integrity from what I saw.
Yes, absolutely. Otherwise, he'd never have succeeded. He'd have been hated.
Well,
if he didn't have integrity, if he didn't have honesty, he would have been hated for who he was. But everyone understood. I'm getting irate with you. You know, there was a moral compass about his act.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
and
that's the thing.
That's what we lack today. The moral compass, I think, has gone askew, and I don't think that they make them like James anymore. I think that's something that we have lost somewhere down the line, and it makes me think, you know, you sit and you think, my goodness, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a front bench of James Wales, because this country would be in a far better situation than it is now.
I would like this studio above the door to be called the James Wales Studio, because when you entered it, it would inspire you to raise the bar in terms of broadcast, in terms of self-production, and in terms of free speech unhindered. If this was called the James Wales Studio, then I think this would be one of the, like a little bit like Wogan House, which is at Radio 2, and they moved out of it now. But it would be nice, wouldn't it? Because a similar kind of tradition has grown out of that particular radio station with Wogan, and here James Whale, you know, the manifestation of free speech, of independent radio and television's rumbustriousness. That is kind of what we are too, and I think a little plaque, a little ribbon, maybe Lady W and his children, his sons, could cut the ribbon, and maybe that would be something that made us all better broadcasters and appreciate our jobs here even more than we do. What do you think, Georgina?
I think that would be an absolutely fabulous idea, because as soon as you walked in and that plaque was there, you would be better than what you would have necessarily been, because he's watching over you, and I'm quite sure he is watching over you.
Will you shut up, Johnny, and go to a break, is what I'm thinking he might be saying now. Georgina, thank you very much indeed. Live from the James Whale studio here at Talk, I'm Jonny Gould. We'll have more of your texts and calls in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And a warm welcome to the show. I'm Jonny Gould. I'm here for another 25 or so minutes. We're paying tribute to James Whale, who yesterday was laid to rest in a churchyard in Maidstone in Kent. Over 300 people paid tribute to him. The church so packed that obviously there were people queuing outside, and it was relayed. The service was relayed outside by live video. That was how much the man was loved. Pete has texted us, and you can do the same, 87222, or you can WhatsApp us as well, 0344 499 1000. Johnny, James will have the biggest debate in history if Bible Ken is right. It's James versus God, the debate for eternity. We miss James, and as listeners, we all knew and loved him. And here's what we say to that. Johnny, says Ian, Stella was our guest in the last hour reviewing the papers. Greeks. Who can forget the late musician Vangelis's film score for the dystopian Blade Runner? It's now 43 years old, yet still sounds absolutely amazing. That comes from Ian. Thank you very much indeed. We'll talk to Stephen in Manchester in just a moment, but let's have a little audio compilation of some of the highlights from James's legendary talk radio shows.
Please, don't bear it. Fed up of Brexit? Ha! That's it now. I've texted. Helicopters coming in out of the sun. Careful, boys. Are they ours?
What's that smell, man? I don't know what it is, but I like it. What is it?
I love the smell of bacon in the morning.
Ah, yeah, that's it.
If you're happy, if you know it, clap your hands.
Jeremy Hunt sort of wound me up a couple of days ago.
Oh, he didn't. Oh, that silly old Hunt. Have you ever thought about going abroad?
Sorry, where did that question come from?
My mouth.
James, can we tone the sarcasm down just a little bit?
No, I'm not aware of sarcasm. This is a very serious matter. I don't know why you should think I'm being sarcastic. Come on, Craig. It's not going to make any difference leaving the European Union. I've had enough. Goodbye. Wendy, thank you for your time. Good evening.
Hi, Jamie. James.
No, call me Jamie. I love it. Call me J-Mo, if you wish. Just in case there's anybody dropping off. Wake up! Let me put my arm around your shoulder and give you a hug.
Oh.
Ash is doing it too. We're sort of... So I love the Ribble Valley. Have you ever been there? I've had some lovely times in the Ribble Valley.
In Wales?
No, it's in Lancashire, you prat.
Basically Wales.
A woman again. Ow! Oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. I used to be able to do it. I can't do it.
We've had Queen Victoria's underwear, which was quite a...
Did you verify it? Well, actually, I've got some old pants. What sort of money could I raise on them? As soon as you pop out of the womb, you should be allowed to vote, for goodness sake. What we need is a three-way chili off.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Threesome. A chili threesome.
A chili threesome. I actually look quite good as a woman, don't I?
Yeah.
Maybe I should identify as a woman 2 days a week. They can't raise their voices. They're not allowed to raise their voices.
I don't know...
I am the only person allowed to raise their voice. I've got my hoodie on tonight. Hang on, if I put my hood up... Oh, that's better. Slightly menacing, isn't it, really?
2 glorious minutes of James together with Ash, and yes, direction has not always been Ash's greatest attribute, Ribble Valley being in Lancashire and not Wales. I hope he knows that by now. Andy has tweeted me, and you can do the same, by the way, at Jonny Gould or at talkTV. It's the same here in Birmingham. I was complaining about, or not complaining, but saying that actually the way to solve the housing crisis is to allow developers to build on top of existing houses, to create more stories, to build more skyscrapers. If you look in Acton in West London, even though it's 5 or 6 miles from the West End, there are skyscrapers everywhere you look. And Andy says it's the same here in Birmingham, Johnny. As you probably know, huge skyscrapers constantly going up in Birmingham city centre for the purpose of who knows. And the thing about this is that they may not be occupied for the next 5 years, but eventually, if you build it, they will come. Centrepoint was a huge financial disaster at the end of Oxford Street. And not only was it eventually filled with offices, but now it's been converted into expensive flats. The same for Canary Wharf. That was a bit of an elephant, a bit of a white elephant. But now, after all these years, it's an established postcode, a very prosperous area of London. And these areas, they might be empty in terms of the buildings, but they will be filled. I'm absolutely sure of it. So, you know, keep developing, keep building our economy, and, you know, you never know, we might actually evolve into a more accepting and happier society than we are now. That's certainly my wish and my prayer for this evening. We're going to continue paying tribute to James now with Stephen in Manchester. Stephen, welcome.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate, good.
Blade Runner. I was mesmerised with that film when I was a kid. Wasn't a big hit at the time, was it? But
which film are we talking about, Stephen?
Blade Runner.
Oh, Blade Runner, yeah.
And at the end where the android dies, basically, give away a bit, but... And
don't spoil it for people.
It was actually Rutger Hauer that came up with, you know, tears lost in rain sort of line. I remember that. So, yeah, really love that film. Anyway, James Whale.
Yes.
Or as Ash calls him, James Wales.
James Wales.
James Wales. And do you know what I really miss? I miss James going, "Shut up, Ash."
Yeah, will you shut up, Ash?
It's just that's better than me.
Yeah.
But I phoned up one night, and I always found probably one or two libations would stiffen my resolve to phone him up. Right?
Yeah.
I phoned him up one night. I said, "You know, I'm thinking about you. Like, you're the most amazing guy. You know, like a Jedi Knight of radio presentations. I've got a Jedi name for you."
Go on. What was it?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
There we go. Boom. Absolutely.
And they kind of cut me off, and it was after 11 o'clock. So I got dumped, but then it was when it was talkTV days, and it just panned on James, and James was laughing. He said, I think I said something like, you know, they're total deadpan. That's actually quite clever, though.
Yeah.
I love the guy. He was bold, he was great, and he didn't give a toss.
Yeah. And I think that's actually the approach that one needs to take to safeguard free speech. Everyone's so worried, walking on eggshells, worrying about whether the cops will knock on your door.
Well, you're not wrong there, Johnny.
Go on.
It's really difficult to talk to someone today and not think, am I going to offend them? And I don't like that.
Yeah,
honestly.
listen, you know, it's okay to... you know, the only way we're ever going to progress as a society is to have open discussion. And James Well was able to do that. He was also able to detoxify the idea of it as well in the way that he attacked and approached it, because he was so honest about things.
I've also got one thing to say to you before we go.
Go on.
Viva James, obviously. I stand, it sounds very American, 4square with you as a Jewish man, with Israel. I've had enough of these radical Islamists, and they're not, you know, like all these sort of wokey middle class, you know, ex-teachers that are going round.
Matcha latte drinkers.
Horrible. Yeah, listen, I stand. I'm a Christian.
Yes.
I stand with you, Johnny. Honestly, it disgusts me what's going on in this country. You know, you were talking earlier on about 1 in 5 people is an anti-Semite these days. Not me, anyway.
No, Stephen, thank you very much for your support and kind words.
Johnny,
because...
quick one.
Yes, mate.
Scott McTominay, we got rid of him.
Yes.
He scored 10 goals that season before we got rid of him. He goes to Napoli, scores 12 goals in his first season. What was Sir Jim Ratcliffe thinking?
I know. He's turned into one of the world's best midfielders.
And we've got Casemiro, who can't run.
Yes. I mean, what a clanger. How's it all gone wrong at United?
Oh, it's just absolute punt. Listen, the thing is, I had my sort of early on in life, my 20 years of obviously Sir Alex and the great things he did. And stuff like that, you know, 1999, 1966, etc., stuff like that. We're just absolutely... Look how long it took Liverpool to win the league again.
Yeah, 30 years. Well, but it was like you guys, it took you 26 years when you won it in 93 as well.
No, we got beat by Grimsby last week.
I know. And you know, it was on the cards as well.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I was looking at, did me a little goal line thing, what app I've got. It's got 2-0.
Yeah, madness.
Of a retake
Madness.
was going, what is going on here? I know they got back and then they lost on promise, didn't they? But hey, lovely talking to you,
You
Johnny.
too, Stephen. Thank you very much for your kind words, your supportive words. And to hear those, I don't take those for granted, what Stephen said about support for minorities and for the Jewish community. Thank you very much for saying them here on Talk. We're paying tribute to James, and if you have a particular story either from Talk or indeed anywhere else that you remember him from, you might have been one of his original listeners on Radio Air in Leeds. You might be of a kind of vintage to be that person. I was a child when I heard of this presenter from Leeds called James Wales, and who would have believed my little baby brother, who was, I don't know, 10 years old, would end up working with him for 30 years. Who knew something like that was possible? 0344 499 1000. Your calls, your texts, your memories after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
So many people want to pay tribute to James Whale tonight. 0344 499 1000. Andy in Sutton Coldfield to start. Hello, Andy.
Yeah, hearing you talk about... I'm a man in my 60s, and hearing you talk about James on Radio Air, that's what got me onto James. But,
right.
But listen, Johnny, I don't say this lightly. James most likely saved my life.
Really?
And it's a bit of a story. I'll try and get it in as quick as I can.
Yes.
I worked for the BBC myself, and at Pebble Mill in Birmingham, a place I'm sure you know well.
Yes, of course. I started there as well.
Yes, I know. And after the show, I worked in the audio unit, and after the Good Morning with Anna and Nick show finished,
yes,
the BBC had to create a bit of a fill-in show before they decided what to do next. So they created this show called Talk About with guest presenters, and James came in as one of the guest presenters.
Did he really? What year was this, Andy?
I'd say it was about 96, 97.
Right, interesting.
Yeah.
Because he was already here. He was at Talk Radio by then.
That's right, and this kind of carries on into the story. So So they had various guest presenters. Ed Doolan was one of them.
Yeah.
But it was like a radio. It's basically what you're doing now. It was a radio phoning on the telly.
Yes.
And so James was a guest presenter, and I was a bit thrilled because I'd been a fan of James for years. And when we came on set as a sound crew, they had a prop, an actual old style telephone on the desk. And as the sound crew during rehearsal, we're wiring all the cables and microphones. And James picked up the phone and he says, "Oh yes, good morning, Mr. Burt," because John Burt was the.
He was the governor.
No, the crew. He said the crew have just arrived. No, they're a bit late, but they're good lads, really. And he had this wonderful rapport with the crew. He was such a lovely bloke.
That's great.
But then fast forward 5 years, Johnny, and I'd since got married, and I was back 2000. I was going through a bit of a difficult divorce, and at the time I had my first 18-month-old son, and I'd tried to take my own life at the time, and I was listening to, as you say, the original talk.
Yes.
Late at night, probably with a glass in hand, and James was on, and for some reason James was, I think the subject of the day was relationship breakups and how men can be affected. So I called in, and I said I was going through this thing, and I wasn't in a good place. But during the call, I said, "By the way, James, I met you back in 96, 97 when you came on the Talk About show." And he remembered me. He went, "Oh, yeah, I remember you. You're the guy with the long hair," because I was a rock dude then, had long hair, a bit like Ash.
Right.
And he completely distracted me. He said, "Well, I'll tell you how that show came about." And then we were talking about how the BBC had to put this filler show on, and the demise of Pebble Mill, because as you probably know, they eventually demolished it.
Yeah, they did.
He kept me on the line for about 20 minutes, completely distracting me, talking about the state of the BBC and that show. And by the end of that 20 minutes, I was bouncing. He completely took me off.
Wow.
The dark thoughts I was having when I called in, and I had a bit of a bounce, and I went back to work, and I thought, wow, the fact that James had actually remembered me from 5 years ago.
Wow.
You know, I was, because he was a hero of mine.
Yeah.
You know, I was watching him on TV before I started working at the BBC, and so I can truly say James saved my life, because I had already been sectioned into mental health.
Right.
And I was having very dark thoughts at the time.
How are you doing today, Andy?
Well, it's 20 years on now. The 2 years acrimonious divorce, I'm actually, 20 years later, I'm very good friends with my ex-wife.
Right. Oh. You sound like as you've developed in life, you've found a bit of perspective.
Yeah, we realise that, we've got an 18-month lad, and we banged our heads together, and even though we're divorced, we went to all the parents' evenings and helped him through school, got him into a good school, and to this day we're good pals. I'm in a different relationship now, and she's now married, so it all worked out in the end.
How lovely. By the way, the Talk About show is on screen now if you're watching Talk.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, no, I can replay that on YouTube. But
absolutely.
Yeah, the Talk About
show. So basically, you are here because James spoke to you about the show that you worked with him on, and he turned your suicidal thoughts into positivity, and he saved your life.
Absolutely, without question. I was in a hell of a state that night. I called him, and he just distracted me, and yes, without question.
A lump to our collective throats. Andy and Sutton Coldfield, thank you very much indeed. Because he was an ace communicator, and people loved him for his power of communication. But perhaps even that is even greater than we could have ever imagined. He saved, Andy's saying from Sutton Coldfield, he saved his life by remembering him and talking to him about the show that he worked on. 0344 499 1000. Where are we going next, guys? Who should we talk to? Gary in Lincolnshire. Hello, Gary.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening, good morning.
Good evening and good morning. That sounds like David Frost.
I was saying to your producer that I followed James from the television days. That's when I first noticed him. Then he went on various stations and got removed, blah, 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 blah. And I used to live in St Albans, and I was in the petrol station, and he was in front of me.
Right.
And I think he was limping a bit, and I can't remember now if he had a walking stick or not.
Right.
I wanted to introduce myself to him, but I thought, you might tell me to do one.
No, well, that was no. He wouldn't have done that. He would have found time for you, I think. What happened? Did you introduce yourself?
Because his persona, it's just seeing him in person, and I didn't realise he's so short as well.
He wasn't that short, but but that's the thing. You were scared of the persona, and it intimidated you. But actually, he was, as we've said over and over, and as people have remarked, he was really not that person. And if he had been so awful, he would have been reviled and we wouldn't remember him today. He wouldn't have worked here for so long. But the fact is that he was kind underneath all the bluster.
Yes,
and,
yes. I've heard lots and lots since, when he died, it was obviously going to happen. But I've heard lots of all the various people throughout the industry that have worked with him for years said how brilliant he was. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, thank you very much indeed. There we go. Just to prove again that he might have seemed intimidating, he definitely was not. Phil in Worthing, good morning to you.
Good morning, Johnny.
Hi, Phil.
First of all, just say, pleasure to be the last caller on such a really sad day, really, for everybody.
Yeah.
And I just want to pass all my regards on to Ash, obviously, who I saw earlier on a clip carrying James's coffin.
Yes.
I'm sorry to be, to tell it as it was, but I'm a Brummie, so that's what we do.
That's what we do, isn't it?
But
what are you doing in Worthing?
Well, I lived down here for quite a while now, mate.
Nice. Well, fair enough. That's okay. You're allowed to. So, but you've been listening to James for the last 40 years or so?
Yes. I used to come home from Rover when I've been working on the cars, and I used to come in. My cat was waiting outside. My dad had passed away many years ago, and I used to let the cat in. My mum would be fast asleep, so it'd be late at night. I didn't want to wake my mum up, I used to come in, put the telly on, get my Findus lasagna, which my mum used to leave for me, sit down in my council house in Birmingham, sit down and watch James Whale, and it was like my introduction to how a great communicator you could be if you really tried hard enough.
Right, that's
interesting. And you and your brother are obviously, and this is the final point I wanted to make. Obviously, God bless James and everybody's listening, anybody connected at the studios and family and everything. But I've got to be honest. I think Ash has learnt from him, and he's now starting to become his own version of what he thinks he should do, because you know what Ash is like. He's going to do his own thing, but I think Ash is going to continue and move forwards in that vein.
Well,
I really
hope
do.
so. I mean, Ash is he's my little brother, but he's in his 50s, and he's become his own man, and I think James bequeathed the show to him. I'm not sure James owned the show, but I think his dying wish was that Ash should take it over.
Really?
And look, he's had a dress rehearsal or a non-dress rehearsal for many, many years, many decades. So maybe his time has come.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, Johnny, I listen to him with Andre quite a lot.
Yeah.
I do get on. I have a chat with Andre about politics and other stuff.
Yeah.
And by the way, Stella, can I just say, she was lovely, that girl, earlier. I've not seen her before.
She's great.
I mean, I know she's from the left, but you've got to have a bit of balance, and she's really eloquent, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. She knows her stuff. I'd never met her before, but I knew of her, so I asked her to come on the show tonight.
And Johnny, you're going to have more of you on the show.
I hope so, mate. Thanks very much. Keep up the good work, Phil. You're a really good caller.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you. No, I do love working here. I do love it. And I love the audience and I love the people that this particular station creates. And I'll tell you why I say that, Phil, because I have been on other networks reviewing newspapers and talking in a certain way, and they have created a hostile audience. And what we do here at Talk, perhaps more than any other station anywhere, is create a wider community of goodwill and kindness. And that is what I always experience on air here.
Well, your kindness comes across, Johnny. I have not spoken to you personally before. I spoke to Ash many times. Please pass my regards on to him when he's sobered up.